All right. So welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. It's now 5 o'clock and everyone's starting to come in. The names are starting to tick up, the little boxes with people's faces in them, the wormholes from 1984, connecting me to you and you to everyone else are happening. So this is A Few Quiet Yarns, and you might have noticed I've been calling it Experience Talks, which was actually number 2 event on the list to launch. And thanks to COVID-19, we swapped from AFQY, the original, where there were no speakers, to AFQY Experience Talks, where we do have speakers and community and breakdown. But what I'm going to do is, well, we'll give it a couple of minutes, but I'm going to really keep to a tight time schedule for this one. And that'll mean that we'll be going into breakout rooms. We'll be keeping speakers on 5-minute or thereabouts, not 15 or 25, even though those were cracker deliveries. We want to have everybody the ability to have breakout rooms after a speaker session. And just on that note, for those of you who are just coming in now and hearing this, for our breakout rooms, what we want is to have quick fire exchanges. So I'm Ryan the Lion. I'm sitting in my place in West Auckland. I've come to AFQY to hear all the speakers and enjoy the community. And then I'll let someone out, hand over to the next person. What we don't want is someone dominating the whole conversation and having to be interrupted and forcing someone to feel like they're being rude by saying, hey, let everyone else have a go. So let everyone else have a go. Or that might become the new reason for a red card. I might have to give myself that one. So we're now ticking over, getting a few people in here. So what I'm going to do is send you into the first breakout room right now, and I'll stay in the main room and welcome the other guests. Have a look and make sure the people that haven't got the link, lost the link, can't sort themselves out, I can get them in here. So let's go. We've got 40 people. Let's go to 10 breakout rooms. And I'll put you in here for 5 minutes. And when I invite you back out, if you can come out as soon as possible, that'll be great for everybody. Okay, see you in 5. And everyone's disappearing. Oh, we've still got 6 people here. Nope. 4, 3, 2. It's me and Rach. And here comes Dan.
Hi, I completely pressed the wrong button. I'm just going to play with some more buttons and hopefully that'll work.
That's all right. So Dan, you've just come in. Ashin, Joe, Rachel's still with me. The first lot have been sent into the first breakout room, so you are still in the main room. And this is essentially our breakout room as the next few people come in. And just briefly, welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. This is a few AFQY Experience Talks. I'll just mute you all while I do this. This is AFQY.
Hey, guys.
Yep. This is AFQY Experience Talks. It's the second in a long list of events I've always wanted to launch, and COVID-19 gave me the opportunity because AFQY, the original, had no speakers. AFQY Experience Talks had speakers and community. So we'll be hearing from a range of speakers tonight, as well as having breakout rooms. And at the end, I want to do a Q&A and involve some of the kids that have come along with parents on the basis of the old urban myth, I think it is actually, but I believe it's a true story. The truck that got wedged under the overpass, and all the engineers are trying to work out how to cut the bridge down to let the traffic flow, and a kid from one of the cars behind the truck comes up and says, why don't you let the tyres down? And that's what freed up the truck. So hopefully those who have brought kids or have kids in this will see if we can get some really innocent ideas that don't have the biases of our experience or the heuristics of our experience. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'll just do a wee check. I'll unmute everyone now. So this main room is a breakout room for a couple more minutes. So I'll let you say hello to each other. I'm just going to check any panics on LinkedIn around people that haven't got messages or haven't got their link to get in. That seems all good. All right. So get a gallery view. Who have we got in here? Should be in. Okay. All right. So we've got Gemma, we've got Dave Simmons, we've got Mary Crampton, we've got Neil McCordy, Lisa Cooley, Optimus Prime, Autobots roll out, Michael von Hirschberg, Michelle Coley, Haley, and I've got one of our sponsors, Key People, who can't quite get in. So what I'm going to do is pull everyone out of the first breakout room. Bear with me as I mute you all while we do this. There's Jeff Tribble, Bodine Moses. Okay, so continue, more breakout rooms. So here comes everybody coming back. Boom, 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 boom. If everybody comes back. So for those of you that are just coming in, for those of you that are coming back out of breakout rooms, for those of you that have been listening, welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns Experience Talks. We have a range of amazing speakers this evening. In fact, we had to rearrange the speaking lineup to allow one of them to be speaking on 7 sharp tonight. Of course, still under level 4 lockdown, so the reporter is going to be at his gate. He's going to be inside his gate with 2 meters distancing, and you're going to hear it here first before it's on the news tonight. So cheers to that. So I hope you've got your Fantas, your Spates, your fruit juices, whatever it is that you might be enjoying. Yes, so me being from Dunedin and a loyal Otago person living in Auckland, you're all going to laugh as I say I ran out of my limited 6 Spates that I had in the fridge and discovered the 6-line red that I brought from my neighbour that I can't share with him. So I'll be enjoying an Auckland Lion Red this evening. So looks like we're all back from breakout rooms, or the first breakout room. So we now have a range of more people, and I'm going to put you back into the next breakout room. So just remember, if you haven't heard me before, is that breakout rooms, 5 minutes. When you get the invite to come back out, please come back out quickly for everybody, so we're doing it all at the same time. When you're in there, it's small sound bites, just sharing, so we don't want anyone sharing your life story and dominating conversation. So it's a quick share, like, hi, I'm Ryan Ashton. I'm at my place in West Auckland. It's buckling down with rain outside, lockdown level 4, and then on to the next person. Once we get to having a speaker, the idea is that you'll be able to talk about the speaker and what they've shared. So you'll be able to have a quick share of your takeaway. So go around with 3 or 4 people and then see what the theme is. And of course, but these are just ideas to help you manage a whole bunch of strangers and not have one person talking forever. Because if it was me, it might be me talking forever, which I am now. So into the breakout rooms we go. We've currently got 60 people, so I'm wondering if I'm missing a whole bunch of the other, probably about 100 more. While I put you into breakout rooms, I'll go and find out if I've got the link. Breakout rooms, recreate. So we've got 12. There we go. So see you soon. Have fun in the breakout room, meeting someone new, having an exchange, meet the person, not the suit. And in about 5 minutes, we'll give you a whistle back in here. Thank you very much. Oh, I just saw Graham Barker wearing his AFQI t-shirt. And there's Alison Marshall. I see you've got your son. That's good. Okay. That's looking good. Go to the Zoom link. So who have we got there? Let's unmute all. That looks like Kate.
Hi, Ryan. How you going?
Very good. It's just you and me.
No, there must be more of us, surely.
Oh, there were. Oh, there are.
There were a heap that were showing before. Where have they all gone?
In the breakout rooms.
Oh, cool. Sorry, have I not been given a room yet? I'm in the naughty corner.
Yep. No, you have been given a room.
We'll have our own little breakout. How's that?
Hi, Steve. How's it going? We're over here in the fun, cool room.
Hello, Kate. That looks cool. I love your microphone.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's actually fake. I just do this for effect.
Oh, it's a cool effect. I feel like I need to turn on my background.
Yeah.
So this is the main room of AFQY. Everyone else has been sent into a breakout room. We're keeping to the 5-minute time.
Anyone like a crisp?
Thanks for interrupting me while I'm speaking, Kate. We might just have to mute you all night forever. So just watch yourself. Oh, look, Steve's being a Star Wars person. How was it down in the Mighty Waikato, Joanna?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna mute me and let you run the room while there's Chandan. Chandan, went to Google Hangouts. Classic. Hang on, you're on mute. So unmute all. There we go.
Sorry, my apologies. For some reason, I was clicking the Google Hangout on the invite.
Yeah, I always forget to turn them off, but yeah, it catches a few people out. That's all right. So everyone's in a breakout room at the moment, except for everyone here, which is Steve Smith, Nadine Finlay, Joanna Fowler, and Kate Nankiville.
Hi.
London, and we are still looking for quite a few more people. So I'm just going to flick to my other computer over here and see.
Well, hello everyone in the main breakout room.
Yeah,
G'day.
say hello, people. Say hello.
I'm sorry, and I apologise, Ron. I didn't mean to interrupt before. I was trying to be hospitable and say, would anyone like a crisp?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it, Chris.
Well, the idea of the breakout rooms, the instructions I've given everyone is to exchange your name and where you are. So I'll let you all do that and get to meet each other because this is your pseudo breakout room at the moment.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Joanna, and I'm in Hamilton.
Hello, Joanna. Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm in Parnell in Auckland.
There's my pick. Hi, I'm Steve. While Nadine's looking. Oh, there's a bird. There's a cockatiel.
Hey, cool.
Oh.
You're still on mute there, mate.
Yeah, everyone's got themselves on mute. Here we go. Here's more people turning up.
Ryan, you've muted Nadine.
No, I have unmuted everyone, but I'm just going to mute you.
Yes, now I can speak.
Oh.
Well, I'm just going to mute everyone because we've got a bunch of people turning up. So we've got Nisha Clark, speaker from last event. How you doing? Caroline Southwood, you've got no camera up there, Safoisum. Daniel McCarthy. So this is the main room. We have people in a breakout room at the moment. So I'll just take it off mute in a second. I'm just doing a bit of a check in case we had an issue where people didn't get the link like they did last time. But the idea is go around the room and just introduce yourself and where you are calling in from. So starting with Chandan, who was just about to start with the cockatiel. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chandan, and I am based in Auckland, Freeman's Bay. And my cockatiel has just flown away, but you'll see them throughout the sessions. Thank you. Good to meet you all.
Great to meet you and your cockatiel. Is it bringing your pet to AFQY Day?
Yes, it is.
Go grab my 2 dogs if you want.
Yeah, bring it. Bring it.
Oh. All right, you've asked for it.
No, come on, Steve.
I'm going to mute myself while I call them.
There's one.
I've got my 3-year-old daughter right there. I could bring her.
Oh, yeah, do that too, Nadine. Yep.
Like
Joanna. What's the name of your little friend there, Joanna?
His name's Fitzgerald.
Oh, he's cute.
Fitzgerald. Such a big name for such a little dog.
I know, Fitzy.
There we go. That makes sense.
Oh, here we go. Oh, he's fading against the background.
Are these all the overwalked dogs I've been reading about during the lockdown?
Oh, look at that one, Nisha.
Hey, Nisha, that's a cute dog.
Lilo.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Lilo. Hey.
What a sweetie.
We Frenchie.
Yeah, I'd invite my cats, but they're like protesting in another room.
Hey, Kate, I'm liking your microphone setup there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
That's a proper radio host setup.
Yeah, all ready for my podcast, Daniel.
All
right.
Okay.
So I'm just going to mute all.
It is a very good setup.
So I've just muted all, and now you can hear me. We're just going to pull everybody back in from the breakout rooms. They've been 5 minutes, and once we get everyone in here, so I've just sent that off. But for those that have just come in new, you've just arrived in the main room of A Few Quiet Yarns Experience Talks. This is a new style event. The original A Few Quiet Yarns never had speakers. So A Few Quiet Yarns Experience Talks is the ability for a range of speakers to share some experiences and then for all of us to discuss those. So in the breakout rooms, when you do go into one, which you're about to go into one shortly, the idea is that you've got 5 minutes to briefly share who you are, where you are in lockdown, and as with AFQY, meet the person, not the suit. So you can't sell. Don't want you giving out details before you've had a yarn, got to know each other. You can always swap later. And don't ask what a person does until a bit later. The idea is you get to learn about the kids, the cat, and in this case, or in Chandon's case, the cockatiel, or in Duana's case, Fitzy, who's probably a little bit smaller than the fellow that used to wear the number 2 jersey. But what we're doing is just letting everybody come back in. So I think we've got everybody. I'm going to flick over to the gallery view. Certainly not as many as have registered, so I'm going to send you all into a new breakout room. Oh no, there we go. Now we've got 5. There's Tapita. Good to see you're there. We'll get you on shortly. So yeah, so there we go. There's all the pages. There's Liston, Pinto, Afton Lim, Lena Jenkins. Turn your cameras on, people. You've got to be friendly and be able to see each other. So make sure you got your cameras on and that you can actually see each other. Rachel, you are really in the dark, so you need to lighten that room up so you can be as friendly and forthcoming as everybody else. All right, Afton doesn't have one. So now we've got you all into here. We've got 5 pages of people. I'm going to send you into the last breakout room before we come back for the official start, which will include myself and Taptawihi, who will deliver a mihi. And then we will get into the singing of the national anthem all together. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can leave your microphone on mute. But if you'd like to partake, then I would thoroughly encourage you to, because then you might drown out my terrible voice. But this is going to be done as a deliberate act of inclusiveness, because diversity and inclusion, of course, is a well talked about subject, but diversity by itself does not actually mean inclusion. You can have a whole bunch, you can have diversity and all these little pockets of people that are not mixing. So the act of inclusion is to get us all to go through a challenge together, which is to sing the New Zealand national anthem in Māori. So you may not know it, you may not be able to pronounce Māori vowels, but if you're willing and you give it a go, that is going to be what's bonding us together this evening for the rest of the night. So for now, I'm going to send you into breakout rooms and you'll meet 3 to 4 to 5 people, and you can do that quick round sharing. We don't want anyone hogging the talk time. So quick share and then let the next person get into it. So let's go. I nearly pressed the end meeting button. That would be a disaster. Let's go to breakout rooms and let's recreate and go. I think that. All right. See you later. Have fun in those rooms. And I'm going to check things out here. All right. Oops. So it's just us left in this room. Oh no, there we go. So we've only got 70 people out of 130 that have registered. We think something has not gone right. There we go. Did you and Jeff do synchronized dressing this evening? Roger?
Yeah.
Very well done. He's got a red polo on as well. I think he's got his is a Ferrari one.
Yep. No, this is just my normal read. Supporting the government, one could say, but I'm not really.
Here's my big red support. There she is.
Yeah. I got one here. I got the old Stella. I couldn't find the Corona. You going all right?
Yes, I am. And welcome, Hiria.
I have my cup of tea. Yeah.
Cup of tea. And your amazing moko. That's good. I think that'd be is that the first time I've seen you in person since you've had it done?
Oh yeah, I think so actually.
Yeah, you did a did you do a post or did you tell me? That's what you told me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't
lean
really.
in and goes a
Oh.
woo. That's very cool. Well, we're in the main room, and I sent everybody else off to a breakout room.
Oh.
So, cheers to your cup of tea. My this is my pseudo Speight's because I ran out of Speight's being a good Dunedin lad. I drank it all ahead of schedule. So yeah, I'm just wondering though where I might do a bit of a hang on, I'm going to go to events. Just wonder if it's because the timing changed.
No, it was my fault. I only just did the thingy.
No. So you should have been. Maybe I didn't put you in the email, but you should have had it as a speaker. There's meant to be a file there for you, so you didn't have to register. You should have a meeting invite with it in there. Hang on, where's my meetings? Hang on. Events. Oh, that one there. Okay. So I'm just going into the event. Should have done this. Should have prepared this earlier. And oh yeah. So I've seen Mary Crampton in here, and she's the third last person. I've given the second last person the message. Hang on. Right, so we're going to crack into it. We're going to A, sing the national anthem, B, have a mihi, or actually in other order. So let me just get those. Can you hear the rain? From my place?
Yeah.
Shit. Okay, let's go and go breakout rooms, close all rooms. All right, here comes everybody back. Welcome, Roxanne. I'm just going, hello. So everyone will be coming back in out of breakout rooms. I love this because the screen just goes pop, 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 pop. Right, let's go full screen. Oops, someone's not on mute. So welcome back from the breakout rooms. We're now going to formally begin a few quiet yarns. So I'm just going to allow everyone to get back in or look as though everyone that is back in. I mentioned that I live in West Auckland and it's currently raining. You might be able to hear my end that it's raining, but that's all right. So here we go, we've got 76. So I am looking for, if I spell his name right, there we go. So, oops. So I've unmuted Tapita Wehi, who I would like to introduce as the CEO. Now, it should actually probably be, if I get this right, you can correct me, Kai Whakahaere of the Haka Experience. And Tapita has been taking Haka to the world, some really crazy, interesting stories. Tonight, right now, he's going to introduce, or welcome, sorry, everyone, with a mihi. And then we will all get on to singing the New Zealand national anthem in Māori. It looks as though someone has already beaten me to it and put the words in there. No, that's someone else. So I'm just going to chat the words to the anthem right now, so you can all have a wee look at them. And please just leave that there as the last chat. And what we'll do is I'll now hand over to Tapita to introduce himself and give us a welcome. So, over to you.
Kia ora, ka tira tēnā tātou. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. Yep, you've pretty much covered it. Tapita Wehi is my name. I come from Gisborne, East Coast, but I've been living in Auckland for over the past 40 years. So, privileged to come here tonight and join you, Ryan. I'm a first timer here. So Ryan's just asked me to start our hui tonight with a karakia and a mihi to everyone. Nō reira I tēnei wā, ka huri atu ki a koutou, koutou rā, ngā matāwaka, ngā maunga whakahi, whare kare oi o tēnā hapu, koutou rā, haina mana mā, Pākehā mā, imi ana mā tātou, ko tau mai nei ki rungi tēnei kaupapa, ki rungi tēnei waka e ana whakamuana, ka huri atu ki te mana whenua, ki ngā iwi o tāmaki here ngā waka, tāmaki here ngā tangata. Nō reira nei rā mātou, ko tau mai nei ki rungi te reo karanga. Huri nō kia tātou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So it's just a quick mihi to everyone, welcoming you all here to tonight's kaupapa. And I just pay tribute first and foremost to the residing tribes that reside here in Auckland. And then I also pay tribute to everyone, all your backgrounds who have all come here to join in tonight's kōrero, tonight's discussion. So just on behalf of myself and Ryan, nau mai, haere mai, welcome. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you very much, Ryan. Tēnā koe.
Thank you, Tapita. So now I'm going to flick to gallery view and just use your physical hands. First of all, hands up who knows how to sing our national anthem in Te Reo Māori. Yeah, look at the hands. And keep those hands up, or put the hands up if you are going to give it a crack with us in a second. Okay, keep the hands up because I've got to flick through all the screens. Jessica's drinking, but that's also a hand up. There we go. Okay, so the idea behind this is an act of inclusiveness. We've all gone through level 4 lockdown of COVID-19, and we are almost successfully going into level 3 on Monday. Obviously, it will happen on Monday and it will be a success. We want to stay in level 3. We don't want to come out of level 3 and go back to level 4. Yesterday here in West Auckland, I already saw yesterday it was almost like people had forgotten they were in COVID-19 lockdown level 4 still. And I had to ask people to get 2 meters back. It was quite unnerving. And people thought it was all done and dusted and over, but we're not. So while we've persevered, this is to be an act of inclusiveness, and also a bit of fun. And then we'll get into our first speaker, Stephen England Hall, for the CEO of Tourism New Zealand, who's also going to be on the 7 sharp at 7 sharp. So is everybody ready? Has everyone got the words they can see in the chat? So I guess in some regards, I better say, if I lead it and keep pace to me, I'll sort of, well, we'll just see how we go. But I tend to be a little bit faster than the lovely videos because I like a bit more energy to it. So let's just give it a crack, and whatever happens, happens, because it's all about participating and doing this together. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Hey, yo, up. I just realised. Wait. Hang on. Stop. I forgot that I had all of you on mute. So my bad. Now I'm going to unmute you all, and then we'll do the 3 countdown, and we'll go together. Okay. So 1, 2, 3.
So let's not do that again, Ryan.
You can do that again. Timing was better. Oh, look, there we go. Unborn.
Don't worry.
Okay, so let me mute you all for a second. Okay, so just with a quick show of hands, physical hands, do we want to try and get the timing right and do it one more time? Or not? Show of hands. We've got a show of hands. Not really. Okay, we are totally inclusive on our vote to not do that again. So that's absolutely fine. It was good fun and recorded the whole lot. So we'll now go to our first speaker for this evening, which is, we'll get them ready, Stephen England Hall. So just bear with me as I quickly introduce, hang on, unmute. There we go. And spotlight. So this is our first speaker for this evening, Stephen England Hall. He is the CEO of Tourism New Zealand. I looked back in his background, stalked him on LinkedIn, and discovered he actually started in technology, and AFQY is a technology-based networking event originally. So I had no idea, but that's led forward through a range of C-level roles around the world, a number of board appointments. He's got an MBA from Cambridge, none other. He's on the advisory council for Cambridge, and it's fantastic to have him here. He's going to be on 7 sharp this evening, so we're very honoured to have you. And you know, obviously tourism is locked down, and there's nothing that I should say but to hand over to you with great thanks for being here. The floor is yours.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice, believe it or not. It's been a pretty much continuous conversation and Zoom call for about the last, feels like an eternity, but for at least the last 4 or 5 weeks, it's been a pretty much continuous period. I'm sure that's the same for many of you. Look, I mean, to your point, Ryan, my background is in big tech, and then into little tech, and into startup tech, and then into digital media, and then real-time analytics was probably the last universe I played in before moving across to Tourism New Zealand. And look, I just want to give a little bit of context for that decision. I really decided to come into this role and into this industry for a couple of reasons. One is it's pretty big and significant, and I do see tourism as a unique industry globally that is able to have a high level of efficiency and of efficacy in bringing thank you, Rod. You did too. You were one of the people that persuaded me this was a good idea. I see Rod's on the call. He has to stop harassing me with his text messages. But nonetheless, you know, it's a massive industry. It's massively impactful. And of course, it's an industry that can be leveraged and organized to solve a number of challenges. You know, it's highly regionally distributed and dispersed. It requires significant community engagement. It leverages natural equity and natural capital. It has the ability to deliver economic outcomes at scale. In parts of the world, it's used as a vehicle for economic development, to reduce inequality and to enable the uplifting of those peoples who have been underprivileged or oppressed. So tourism is not just about the big economic end of town. It actually is an incredibly powerful vehicle for change. And of course, it's very much a human nature. It's a human characteristic to want to explore and learn and understand and reach out and connect with other people. And I think tourism is a vehicle through which we do that. New Zealand, of course, until recently, we're quite unique. Most people don't know this, but 0.29% of global tourism, that's New Zealand's current New Zealand. That's where we were just before COVID-19 hit us. So you are more likely to buy a new Aston Martin as a new vehicle, as a percentage of sales, than you are to choose New Zealand as a holiday destination. So we are pretty small in the scheme of things, and often we don't necessarily appreciate how much work and effort's required to get people to choose us. And of course, if you think about why we want people to choose us, it's not just about tourism. It has flow-on impacts to our other export industries as well. And of course, there's a direct relationship between acknowledging and understanding the existence of a place and its people, like New Zealand, and the flow-through effects that has on things like our export of our products and services. So tourism plays a really big role in who we are and how we're seen on the world stage. And increasingly, in about 12, 18 months ago, we've pivoted the story, if you like, the core of our 100% Pure New Zealand messaging to be much more about our values and about who we are as a people and what we want to stand for in the world. And of course, that's sort of one of the things, that's why I got into it, that's what we've been all about. And just in terms of where we are right now, 3 months ago or 2 months ago, we were generating $3.4 billion a month in revenue as a tourism ecosystem in New Zealand, and today it's zero. And we went from 3.4 billion a month to zero in around about 3 days. So that was the kind of consequence of the border closing, and of course New Zealand moving to level 4. Because the other part of tourism, which I find really interesting, is although the international stuff gets a lot of attention, it's actually only 1/3 of total tourism in New Zealand. The other 2/3 is us. It's the 2/3 of the tourism system in New Zealand is New Zealanders. And of course, as we think about our childhood and how amazing it was, and we used to go walking on the beach and it was just us and our dog and those romantic ideals of the past, the reality is when you look around you now and you see other people sharing that beach, it's much more likely that that person is a Kiwi than it is to be an international guest. But nonetheless, international tourism was our #1 export up until a month or so ago, at 20% of our export earnings. And of course, and domestically, it was a $23.4 billion industry. So it's a significant economic industry on that in those dimensions. The other thought which might be worthwhile sharing is, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's highly distributed. It's a highly fragmented ecosystem, tourism as by its nature. It has a huge footprint into regional New Zealand. And one of the things that we're going to see through this COVID-19 scenario is that devastating impacts, not just on tourism, but on the tourism ecosystem that this is going to have. And unfortunately, that's going to be felt disproportionately in certain parts of New Zealand. It's going to be felt obviously in places like Rotorua and Queenstown, without doubt, because they are tourism towns, but places like Kaikoura and Tutukaka and the Bay of Islands, Waitomo, etc., are all places that are going to feel this effect massively, not because everyone in those towns is tourism, but because tourism often is the heart and soul of and the core employment structure that makes those towns operate. And if you think about Kaikoura as an example, there's a really powerful sort of ecosystem in Kaikoura. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there were abattoirs and fishing industry. They also had a mill there. There was a big forestry platform there. And of course, today, the only industry of scale in that region is tourism. And of course, tourism right now is zero. And so that town is going to be feeling it. It's going to be feeling its effects pretty quickly once we come out of level 4 into level 3 and so forth. And so, tourism's in a really, really difficult spot right now. And, the pressure is definitely on for us to come up with a plan to figure out how to recover that sector. Because to be brutally honest, without a tourism recovery, there is no New Zealand recovery. We need New Zealand's recovery to happen for all of our reasons, and tourism also needs a recovery too, and those two things are inexplicably linked. So we are working, some of you would have probably been aware that the first thing the Minister asked us to do, or government asked us to do, was look at how we might kickstart the domestic economy. That piece of work's underway. We've stood up a new team. We've got some work underway at the moment to look at some resource redeployment within TNZ to staff that team and get a domestic recovery team stood up that's going to work and collaborate across New Zealand regions, RTOs, etc., to figure out the best possible way to get Kiwis out exploring and experiencing their own back garden and having a great time while they're doing it. Hopefully laying down a few dollars while they do so. Which most of you might realise that as Kiwis don't tend to travel with the same size wallet as our international guests do. So trying to get Kiwis to relate to New Zealand in a different way is quite important as part of that activity. We've also got this, excuse me, we've also got the international restart that we're also developing, but as you can imagine, those plans are really being prepared in advance, and they're really being stacked up on the shelf, because until we know what borders will open in what sequence and what airline connectivity will exist when those borders do open, it's very hard to know which ones to execute. So that's really the kickstart stuff. I'm happy to take questions on those. And then the last bit, which has been taking up a huge amount of time, of certainly my time and some of my senior team's time in the last couple of weeks, is this project called Reimagining the Tourism System. And as you can imagine in its name, we are having to consider what post-COVID-19 a tourism economy and ecosystem might look like, and how do we design it in a way to get better outcomes for New Zealanders. It's a once in a generation or once in 100-year event that we're dealing with, and on the other side of it, we would like to see tourism being more productive, being more inclusive, having a stronger reflection of our culture and identity, and of course being good for our environment. So how do we design the system to deliver on those outcomes? And we're going to be opening up that process over the next month or so to broad consultation, because we actually think that the only way to get a true reflection of what New Zealanders want from a successful tourism system is actually to ask them and to have their input into the design of that future. So with that, Ryan, I'm going to try and stop myself from talking, and which I know is pretty difficult, and see if we can't answer some of the questions that are coming through.
Absolutely. So there are quite a few questions, and I think one of the ones that I'm burning to ask, which is in here as well, which is if we are 2/3 of the tourism market and 1/3 is international, how much do Kiwis spend when they go on their international?
$9 billion.
So we could replace 17 million or 17 billion lost dollars?
So we get 17.8 billion. We used to get 17.8 billion from international visitors in New Zealand, and Kiwis spend $9 billion when they so, and of course, as you can probably imagine, it's going to be difficult to go overseas on holiday for a little while, and for lots of reasons, and there's probably an opportunity to explore there.
Okay. So then we've got a question from Tex. Have you got a game theory economist working with your team to study monopoly infrastructure bottlenecks?
Wow, that's a great question, Tex. The answer to that is not in my team, no, but certainly within Ministry of Transport and Department of Conservation and MB, they have economic modelers and, of course, constraint theory modelers looking at those types of issues. It's certainly something that we've asked previously in terms of trying to understand, maximum load or maximum capacity on different parts of New Zealand. Yeah, it may take a back seat for a little bit, given that the volumes of people in New Zealand on holiday in particular, and at crunch times, being in the summer, particularly in international tourism, is going to be pretty low for a period of time. A good question.
Okay, so another question I had, or theory I had, was if we are the safe haven in terms of a Western country that has got down to no travel, we have a scientist at Otago University with a $239,000 government grant devising what's called point-and-care testing. So prick your finger, you got it, you haven't. Could we see really controlled international tourism coming here, where you imagine around the world they still have waves and waves of this happening and people dying, but if you are healthy and you can afford it, you can come through quarantine in New Zealand, only can go to that country, pick up a plane load, come back, get tested going into the plane, get tested coming out of the plane. If they all come, instantly test as safe, then you can come and enjoy a holiday not in lockdown in New Zealand. Is that possible?
It's certainly a possibility. Look, I don't want to disclose other people's trusted confidences, Ryan, but I guess those conversations are happening, and there's a lot of thinking going on both in New Zealand and offshore as to to create what's referred to as a digital or safe border, because there's obviously an understanding that immobility of people across borders is a real barrier, not just in terms of economics, but also in terms of culture and inclusiveness globally, and it creates risks, social risks that are evident when you've got quarantined or isolated societies. So there's a lot of thinking going on around how you might achieve that. And you know, I think if we've got New Zealand, I mean, look, there's no reason why those solutions can't come out of New Zealand. In fact, even better if they did. It'd be amazing to see some New Zealand tech being leading the way on that sort of capability.
Cool. So we've got a question from Debbie Howarth that everyone has commented on or referred to. Is what's the chance or sense that there's an Australasian or Oceania bubble within the next 12 months?
It's a good question, Debbie. It's something that's dear to not only tourism's heart, but many other industries as well. Look, it's you would have seen a bit of conversation on that in the media, and it's definitely something that we would be in favour of seeing as well. I mean, whether or not it's going to come to pass at the moment, I couldn't give you an answer on. But I know that, again, there's a lot of influential and key people having that conversation. But at the end of the day, it has to come down to the safe movement of people, which I think, Ryan, your question really, or your point is that if we can't guarantee the safety of New Zealanders and we can't guarantee safe movement of people, then I think those things will remain some way off. But if we can find a solution, then I think, you know, we could move.
Okay. The other thing I thought of, you know, coming back to that, how much do Kiwis spend when they travel that they now are going to spend internally, and how much does that replace what we lost? Was if we do open up to Australia, how much do we lose and how much do we gain? Like, the Australians might not even come here, but we'll go and spend our money else there. We're not fueling New Zealand, which sounds probably a little bit terrible in one case as well. But what was the other question? I'll go to Ryan Ingram's question because I have a good one, but I lost it. Do you know how much the average Aussie spends on tourism overseas? Can that $8 billion hole be filled solely with Aussie?
The short answer is no. Australia is not big enough as a market for us to fill like the complete gap. So Australia makes up about 40 odd percent. In fact, I've got the numbers in front of me, about 40 odd percent of our volume. But it's actually only about 23 or 24% of value in terms of the tourism economy. So, of course, that creates challenges because, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why we've operated a portfolio strategy as Tourism New Zealand for so many years in partnership with the airlines, is that, you know, you don't want to have all of your markets, all of your customers all from one marketplace or create over-dominance. And so most people are surprised to learn that Australia is about 1.5 million 1.5 million visitors a year from Australia, and it's only 400,000 from China, about 350,000 from America, about 250,000 from the UK, and then about 100,000 each from Germany, Japan, and Singapore, Malaysia area. So, you know, there's quite big gaps. So Australia is crucial to getting volume in the system, and it's also, they're highly regionally dispersed and highly interseasonal, i.e. they come skiing in the winter, they come mountain biking and running in the shoulder seasons, and they come here in the summer to see friends and family. So they're quite a good market for us, but they're not big enough economically to fill the hole.
Yeah. So the question I forgot was actually prompted by a discussion with Tech. So excuse me for stealing this text, but I'll give you credit. Is what is the knock-on effect of no international tourism for New Zealand? I think you did comment about this, but what I'm talking about is some practical things like passenger planes, subsidised couriers. I'm just trying to think, logistics. So with the lack of passenger planes, does that now mean that everything else that we might be importing has just gone, the cost of getting it here has gone through the roof? What, like that and anything else, what impacts are there from having no international passenger?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing New Zealanders will note, there's probably a couple of things they'll see very quickly. One is the cost of going overseas on holiday when the time comes will be significantly higher than it's ever been, because the cost of operating the border, of course, is going to increase at both ends, but more importantly, the number of aircraft and the number of available seats on those aircraft is going to be significantly smaller. To give you an example of how that supply-demand equation works, when Emirates pulled off the Trans-Tasman route and started to fly direct from Auckland to Dubai and stopped going via Australia, they reduced the capacity on the Tasman by 14%, which doesn't seem like that much of a big deal, except the prices on the Tasman went up 26% as a consequence. So you get this immediate unless because I guess if you like what Snodgrass says on the call here is master at the stuff from his times gone by, but the demand equation and something like a airline is crucial to pricing and sensitivity. So capacity dropped 14%, prices jumped 27%, and demand dropped nearly 6%. And so the airlines win because they're making more money per seat, but consumers lose technically because they're paying more for that same seat as well. So New Zealand's going to find it more expensive going overseas for quite a long time. And the reason those planes have been so cheap to get those tickets to Europe and Asia and America is because of all those visitors coming here. That's basically it. The other thing is that...
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Sorry?
Can I interrupt you? What you're talking about is, let's say, all pre-COVID-19 thinking. That's how things happen pre-COVID-19. If we were to say, all right, never before in our life have we ever locked down every border, stopped every plane, and we're going to do it for Y2K in case they fell out of the sky, but that never happened, right? So this has actually happened. So do we then turn around and go, let's not make it about recovering costs, let's make it about getting, so if it's, so not covering costs, lost costs, but covering the costs of flying and charging to enable greater volume of people to come here and still have money in their pocket to spend in New Zealand when they get here. Are we better to, instead of using those percentages and go, oh, if we pull this lever by this much, it's going to tip it up the other way that much, and therefore it's $1 million a plane ticket. What if we still kept it at a reasonable price? Call it new economics, call it Ryan economics.
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I mean, I'm going to leave the economics of aviation to the plane, the flyers, and the treasury. But the reality is, right now, there's going to be a couple of things that will happen in aviation. The view at the moment is the 370 airlines in the world that existed 2 months ago has already been reduced by about 50 in 4 weeks. That's the number of folded airlines. And it'll probably continue to grow.
So where are all these planes that now can't be flown?
They're just sitting in giant plane car parks all over the world.
Doing what for who? So the airlines aren't flying them, so they can't generate revenue to pay back Boeing. So Boeing are losing out. Everyone's losing out. So while they're sitting there doing nothing, everyone's losing out. If they were making some cash flow, everyone would be winning something, surely. Does that? I know. Yeah,
I mean, look, the reality. So, look, all that aside, what you'll see is the planes are going to get. Someone's going to buy planes cheap, and fuel is going to get cheaper. So, there's going to be, to your point about supply and demand. The reality is we won't need to do a lot. The demand will the capacity will be re-entered the market. It will just look very different than it did before, and that's okay. I mean, that's the reality of change. But what we have to do as New Zealand is make sure that a proportion of the value comes this way, or proportion of capacity comes this way that's relevant for New Zealand. And I think as part of the rethink of the system that we've been tasked with, we do actually have an opportunity to think about the structure of what aircraft, what capacity, what routes and so forth may or may not work for New Zealand's future. And I think that's a pretty interesting conversation. But look, as I said, that's going to come down to how much consumers are willing to pay. Your other question, Ryan, is about what other effects will Kiwis see? Well, the other thing is there will be less restaurants, less cafes, less hospitality options. There will be less entertainment options. And of course, your Amazon and your overseas ordered shoes and all that sort of stuff that comes by air freight is going to get more expensive and less frequent. And in places like Christchurch, a good example, about 60% of hospitality in Christchurch is paid for or exists because of the international tourism market. And many other parts of New Zealand are kind of similar numbers. So we're just going to see we're just going to see a drop off in our choices for Kiwis. Kiwis just have less things to choose between. And that's disappointing, I think, because I think in the last few years, we've really enjoyed an explosion of different types of, cultural influences in our food and in our art and in our habits. And I think that's going to diminish quite significantly as a consequence of COVID.
Right. So we're going to wrap up there. I could ask you another 20 questions, about 20 great questions in the chat, and this will all be published so that it's accessible for everybody. But what we're going to do is we're going to, on the count of 3, I'm going to unmute everybody so we can give you a round of applause, just like we would if we're sitting in the stadium or the event venue. So on the count of 3, a round of applause. Thanks, Stephen, for his time. He is going to be on 7 sharp tonight. You can catch him there as well. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Come on.
Thank you.
Nice.
Way to go.
Here we go.
Cheers, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're operating in.
I'm going to.
We're a global
mute all
platform.
again.
We've got operations.
I do love it when there's someone having some other conversation on their end with the person they're in the room, and we're here at AFQY. That's all good. So now we're going to go into a breakout room for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to Speaker 2. So this is the opportunity to speak about or discuss what Stephen has shared. So we're going to jump in there right now as quick as possible. We have. Oh, okay. So yeah, let's go 15. See you soon. Thank you very much.
Where they have set up a facility to take care of displaced and vulnerable individuals. And we in New Zealand, we've got a massive set up with civil defence and New Zealand Police with
just to check, you're speaking into
quarantine, almost a precautionary overflow quarantine facility, so that they haven't been using it. They've been putting.
Okay, so Vishal, Michael.
Play out. So there's a number of quite different use cases that.
Excuse me, Dave. Can you hear us in the background?
Hotel infrastructure, if you like. The other big one, actually.
So John, Vishal, can you hear me? Hello. Well, it seems as though, so I can't hear you. I'm trying to get you to talk to me. We've got 4 people in the breakout room. I think Dave is speaking to someone in his background. So are you on mute? No, where's your sound? Have you got any sound? I can't hear you. So no. Okay, so I'm in here talking to myself for the 5 minutes of breakdown, or at least I'm speaking to you, because I have unmuted you all. I have muted Dave Simmons. He seems to be talking to someone in the background, unable to hear us. Who's John? We've got John over here. I'm going to invite you to turn on your camera. Ask to start video. There you go. So Vishal, why can't we hear you? There's John. Hey John, can you hear me? So why can no one hear me? No one. There we go. Okay, so John, can you hear me? Can you speak?
Yeah, hang on.
Oh yeah, there we go. So I can hear you. I was just trying to go. Why I can't hear Vishal when he speaks. And whoever the great one is, do you want to either share your video or at least put your real name up before I Steve Pyer, the great one. Come on, brother. Come on. All right. So I'll unmute you so we can say hi. Everyone else is in a breakout room at the moment. This essentially is your breakout room.
Hey guys, how you going? Sorry I'm late.
That's all right. That's all right. So we've got John keeps on muting himself. Vishal, we can't hear at all. So it's just you and me. There's only the 4 of us here. We can all speak. This is our breakout room. Vishal, you are muted. So let's start by unmuting you. And we still can't hear you, so you must have something wrong with your speakers at your end, your microphone. So maybe if you do I don't know, something technical wizardry. John, what did you think of what Stephen was sharing? Okay, so.
All right.
That's excellent. Hey, listen, greatly appreciate you reaching out to us, Cooper, and I'll look out for that.
Okay, so you're now all unmuted. And you've now muted, so now you've all muted yourself. I'm just trying to get some conversation going here, guys. Can we get in with the program? Because I can't do anything more than unmute you. And I'm trying to ask you what you thought of the speaker. So can you unmute yourselves?
Sure. I did duck out in the middle of it, but I'm based down in Wanaka, and I mean certainly what you read is just massive in terms of the impact that COVID-19's had in this space down here. So that it's interesting that he's reflecting. I think he was saying 2/3 of New Zealand's overall tourism is made up of domestic and 1/3 international, whereas down in Queenstown it's 2/3 international, 1/3 domestic.
Yeah,
it'll be really interesting when the wheels start moving, actually. And speaking of wheels starting to move, is I heard that camper vans, there's been a 400% increase in inquiry levels in relation to camper vans. So that's Kiwis looking at, well, hey, you know, I'm going to be out of work for a while. I might take my buddy kids and take a tour in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I found that.
Yep. So I'm just going to cut you short there as a good practice. Breakout rooms, we get a bit of a short share, and then we let other people get involved. So I'm just trying to get conversation going, and I'm now going to have to pull everyone back. So that is unfortunately the end of this breakout room for us. Thank you. I'll remind everybody when we get out of breakout rooms, the breakout room practice, and we'll now go to our second speaker. So bear with me, and we'll keep on program. Otherwise, we will be running really late. But yeah, absolutely understand the sentiment of what you're saying in terms of the impacts. So that's what we want to get out of people, is to get that. But we spent 4 minutes in silence, so unfortunately we just have to deal with that. Okay, so everyone's coming back into the main room. We're going to have our next speaker. So we just wait for everyone to come back, and we will get cracking onto that. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so just looking here, how are we going, people? Waiting for everyone to come back in. Just closed all the breakout rooms, and just as a bit of a reminder, when you're in a breakout room, it's a bit of a quick share, a quick thought, and let other people give their view, and then you can all talk about the theme. Just as a bit of a reminder for those that are coming new and possibly haven't heard that in the earlier instructions, just reiterating that, so that in the 5 minutes we don't have just one person speaking. Very easy to do. I would do it myself, but so everyone has a fair shot. Just think of it like speed dating. Share your thought, and then once you've all got something out, you can discuss and debate it. So we're just waiting on everyone to come back. I think we could be there. Yes, looking pretty healthy. Just crossing everybody. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight our second speaker, which is Gayan Pereira. And I'm going to introduce Gayan and hand over him. So I'm not going to tell you anything about what he's going to talk about, other than he is a sponsor of A Few Quiet Yarns. And our sponsors also speak as part of the Experience Talks. And we have, we do different things. But in the spirit of A Few Quiet Yarns being meet the person, not the suit, when Gayan and I were speaking about, he said, well, what shall I speak about? And we're talking about various subjects. And we actually got through to him sharing his personal story. And I said, tell that. And it was one of those moments where it was like, that is an awesome story of inspiration. People need to hear that. You went through some really tough times. We all probably have, but wait till you hear the story. And then it also aligns with Meet the Person. So what better way for us to understand who's supporting AFQY, get some inspiration, get to meet the person. So with that, Guy, over to you.
Oh, you hear me all right?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So a little bit about me and a story before I share my personal story. Based on my profile picture, some of you might know that I have a pilot's license, and I love taking my wife and the two kids flying. I'm a pilot first and a chief technology officer second. So if you want to go flying after the lockdown, drop me a line. I would love to take you up around Auckland area. Ryan wanted me to share my story as it's a little bit unique, and it's been helping our company navigate through potentially tough times that we're all currently going through. I've only got 5 minutes, so if anyone wants to chat after this, let me know. Happy to chat, because I'll be dropping out quite a lot of the story. So let's get to it. I came to New Zealand in 1996. I was 10 years old. My mum, sister, and grandma, we came here because my dad passed away. It was a struggle for about 8 years. My mum worked 3 jobs, super hard. She babysat, cleaned, we delivered newspapers, and it was really hard. To make it worse, immigration asked us to leave New Zealand because the war had just ended in the early 2000s. But we didn't want to go back, because after you've been in a country for 8 years and that's all you know, I couldn't read, write Sri Lankan, so there was really nothing for me to go back. So what we decided to do was decided to live in a garage for about a year. No bedrooms, no washing machines. We remember washing clothes in a bucket at one stage. On a lucky week, we'd get to buy a donut for a couple of bucks on a Saturday as a treat. If we were really lucky, we'd get to buy maybe a Big Mac from McDonald's on a Saturday. So it was tough going. It got quite tough, and my mum and sister had to go back to Sri Lanka because we couldn't get our visa extended. But I decided to stay because I really didn't want to go back. I knew there was nothing for me back there. And that made me an overstayer in New Zealand. I went to some lawyers, some high profile ones, and they all said, sorry mate, there's nothing we could do for you. You need to go back and you need to try to apply differently. I said to myself, no, this can't be right. There must be a way. So I sat in the kitchen, I stared at a white wall, and I said, hey God, look, if you're real, you got to help me out with this. Otherwise it's going to end in 2 ways. One, not such a good way. The other one, we're going to do something really great. And after a while, something said, hey, you need to go talk to immigration and face the music. Everyone was saying, don't go, stay hiding. If you go see them, they're going to put handcuffs on you. They're going to put you in jail and probably send you to Sri Lanka on the next flight out. I decided to listen to the inner voice and face the music, and it worked. I got a work permit approved in about a couple of weeks' time. Then I went to the lawyers again, and they said, hey, this is still too hard. Your case is too difficult. You're going to find it very difficult to get residency here. We can't help you. I thought, gee whiz, there must be another way. I mean, I've just got a work permit, so it can't be that difficult. So I went to the immigration website, grabbed the operations manual, went through it, figured out what I needed to tick off, and started ticking it off. It took 15 years of trying and trying again to get my citizenship, and I only got it last year, December. I've cut out a lot, by the way, so yeah. And then jumping ahead to when Magnetism, our company, was born, we did it because we wanted to be our own bosses. We had just read this book called The 4-Hour Workweek by a guy called Tim Ferriss, and thought it sounded great because it talked about working 4 hours a week but getting paid truckloads of money, and decided that was quite glamorous. So we said, let's do it. Well, how stupid that was. We learned quite a lot. And then by 2011, after about 4 or 5 years in business, we were in debt, huge amounts of debt, with a lot of hard lessons learned, experience, and water under the bridge. And yeah, it just got super tough. It all changed though when one of the company directors at the time said, hey, you guys really need to change your focus and strategy. He said, why don't you focus on zero failed implementations? You probably know that in the IT industry, most of the projects fail, and they're notoriously over budget, over time. It's just badly done. So we decided to change our focus from wanting to be our own bosses and wanting an easier life. We decided to focus on the client, giving our clients real value, essentially a guarantee of a successful implementation. Something that's still our mantra today. After about 2 years of working 80 hours plus a week, far different from the 4 hours that I really wanted to work every week. In 2013, we paid off all our debt. I missed birthdays. I didn't go out partying a lot in my 20s, didn't get to go play cricket or touch rugby, but that all changed. I'm happily married. I've got 2 young kids, and the business employs about 20 plus employees specializing in Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm a big supporter of the Black Caps, not Sri Lankans anymore, in case you're wondering. There's a lot more to the story, by the way. I've chopped out a lot, so let me know if you want to hear it one day. But I want to leave you with 3 key things that I learned along the way that may help some of you get through the current crisis. First is focus on something other than myself. So for us, it was a relentless focus on delivering value or zero failed implementations to our clients. It changed the game for us. We grew, we were way blessed beyond our finest imaginations. Like, it was unbelievable. And secondly, sometimes during a crisis or when you're backed into a corner that you have no way out or you can't see a way out, you need help from the man upstairs. So listen to that voice. And lastly, face the music. So it could have been very easy for me to go and hide because of the fear of going and talking to immigration, being scared about being put in handcuffs, put in jail. All of that was, quite scary. But when I decided to go face the music, that became the turning point of everything that changed the way my life operated. So the key takeaways from the past 24 plus years of hardship that I've squeezed into 3 or 4 minutes that I take into this COVID-19 situation is to make sure that I help others and not worry about myself so much, and then talking to God every day and facing the current crisis without going into fear mode, because it's quite easy to crumble up and hunker down, but don't be scared, just keep going. So that's it.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it is an amazing story. I'll just, oh, hang on. Everything's bouncing around. So it's an amazing story, and the bits there's some bits that are missing that include Guyan wrote one of the first clouds ever, which was the project that earned him the money to stay in New Zealand, I guess, or have a job and an income to pay the rent. And it's a fantastic piece of technology where, if I'm not wrong, it was the ads, TV ads were put up into the cloud, and then different stations could pull them down into the different formats. And there's another element around metadata because they're coming in wrong formats. But this is the detail that he cut out. You've got to hear it from him. I think it's got to be given more voice. But because it was so inspirational, I thought, yes, that's what's got to be told. That's a great story. So we'll go for a round of applause. We'll go into a breakout room, and then we'll be back for our next speaker. So I'm going to unmute you, and hang on, I'm going to go to there, and then unmute you now for. Thank you very much, Guyan.
Me, Brian. Great story.
Yeah, awesome. Super inspirational.
Done. Bye.
Hello.
So, very lucky to have him here as a Kiwi now, and continuing to employ a range of great Kiwis. So I'll just stick you all into a breakout room to have a discussion, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much. So let's go recreate, and go. See you soon. And thank you very much, Guyan. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your sponsorship. All right, and then there was us, Kevin Williamson, Aidan, Peter. All right, I'll unmute us. We can have a
Quite a
chat.
nice guy, but
So this is our
he's
breakup.
from down your way, eh? Or Wellington. Yeah.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I don't know if Rod was talking to us. But I've just unmuted you all. Peter, you there?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, Kevin, you there? Oh, no. Aidan, you there? Well, it looks like you're on the one of the destroyers, mate.
I am. It's my favourite Star Wars background.
Yep. Let's see if Rod's there. Rod, are you there, mate? Okay.
It's pulsating. Sweet. Love to join you.
Rod.
I love beer. I think you're a good bastard. Onto a good thing.
Rod, we can hear you. Where's everyone else though? Aidan, Andrew. I think they are having a pit stop, perhaps. So
just sitting here eating some dinner.
Yeah, this was just. There's no point fucking around. That's how long. There is no point of fucking around.
I just got the mute on in time. That was beautiful. There we go. There we go. I'll have to have a quick dinner. Be right back, Steve Smith. Okay. So yeah, really good story. I thought it was quite the inspirational story. But yeah, he developed by himself back at a date that really there was no cloud, the ability for an ad agency to load up the ads so that all the networks could grab it and then bring it down.
Wow.
So pre-FTP sites, and then put in all the metadata so that they could choose whether they wanted 30 frames a second or 20 frames a second or whatever. So yeah, it's quite a story. And he worked it out. He hadn't worked in coding or anything before, so he worked it all out himself.
That's
And he's now a Microsoft VTSP and MVP and CTO. He's obviously pretty smart when it comes to technology. But yeah, shit, just imagine it. You know, like your father passes away. There's a war on. You shift out. You're here for 8 years. You're Kiwi by that stage. Basically, half your life spent here.
Yep.
And that I don't get. That I don't like on the behalf of New Zealand government. Why the heck would you send people back after 8 years? If they are contributing Kiwi family,
it happened to my son.
What?
You know, my son who passed away.
Yeah.
Because he was born in England, and so I adopted him when he was 4, and we immigrated when he was 16 and 2 weeks. And there was a clause that was put in the 80s when they had overstayers and all those dawn raids and what have you, that you couldn't adopt someone and bring them in over the age of 16. We missed out by 2 weeks. We had to get a Queen's Council and lobby 2 ministers at enormous cost to get them able to stay in the country.
For the sake of 2 weeks.
I know.
Now I know people will say, yeah, but what about everyone else who says, what about 3 weeks? What about whatever weeks? What about
yeah.
But
and I'd checked the website before we came over from England, and there was a fine print clause in there that I missed. But anyway, so it's just that sort of, once you get in that bureaucracy, it's like,
well, look, this is the beauty. Like everyone has a story, right? When I talk about my personal stories, talking about going through IVF, and when I was working in sales, and that would be part of a discussion at the beginning, I could draw a map of New Zealand's major companies and the various personal stories of IVF. And yeah, what I went through sharing my life disasters is that everyone has 1, 2, and by sharing them, this is part of the meet the person, not the suit. You become really close mates. It's quite amazing. So with that though, stay on time. I'm going to bring everyone back out of meeting rooms, and we're going to come back for our next speaker. Close all rooms. Here they come. Here they come. Walking down the street, or in this case, popping back into the main meeting room online. So, what have we got? We are a little bit behind schedule too, so I might skip a breakout room or two to get back on schedule. Come on in, everybody. I'm going to mute you as we all come in. I hope you had a great time talking about Guyan's inspirational story and Stephen's rundown of tourism, and obviously getting to meet the person, not the suit. I think that was a beautiful example of getting to meet the person. I was having a bit of a personal chat with Peter because we were only two in our main room while everyone else was in their other rooms, and we've already shared some personal stories and talking about the process of you share personal story, they share a personal story. You sort of go layers of the onion from the outside to the inside, and by the time you get to the inside, you've got a beautiful relationship, which is far deeper and more important than probably business. But business and money makes the world go round, and that's what we're all learning and finding out what's going to happen. So I'm going to introduce our third speaker, and let me go. There she is, right there, smiling away. So I'm going to unmute you, put you on spotlight so we can all meet you. So let me see if I get it right, because I'm getting better at this. I get really nervous with my pronunciation because I got highlighted that it wasn't so great, and I was always introducing Hiria as Hiria, so pronouncing the I's as an English vowel, not a Māori vowel. So I should, if I get it right, let me just do it off the top of my head. Hiria te rangi, kai whakahare of Whare Hauora.
You're getting much better. So much better, Ryan.
It's like when I did the practice run through of the national anthem last night with Tapita. He said, that's a 5 out of 10. I was like, really? I thought it was better. But let me come back. So let me come back to the introduction. So Hiria has started what is a very heartfelt project come business. She has an amazing, illustrious background in tech and product management, and worked for the big banks and the big ministries, and has an amazing skill set, but more importantly, an amazing heart. So I invited her to speak as a bit of an update, not only about what she does with Whare Hauora, but which is all around, I won't say what it's about, that's your role, but of course you understand how it relates to COVID-19, which is a respiratory disease, and just how lucky we are in New Zealand right now to be where we are and not to be in the case of Italy, US or UK. So with that, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Kia ora tātou katoa, ko Hiria te rangi ahau, ko Ngāti Whārau me ngā tūwhare tō ko iwi. Hi, I'm Hiria. I hail from Ngāti Whārau and tūwhare tō, so I'm always going to be incredibly opinionated. Big background in tech, but the love of my life is Whare Hauora. With Whare Hauora, we created, it's actually a charity, because we had children, and one of my co-founders at the time noticed that her little girl was getting sick a lot with asthma. And being the nerds that we are, she actually created our very first sensor herself out of some parts from AliExpress. And she measured her room, and it was well below the World Health Organization recommendations for healthy homes for a child, which is 21 degrees. And she actually figured out that her room was an porch, sunroom. So atypical Kiwi home, no insulation, nothing in between the external wall and the internal wall but newspaper from the, I think it was 1950s, and that was why her baby was getting sick. I say baby, but she was like 9 at the time. And so when we started to create Whare Hauora, we didn't actually expect it to have the impact that it's actually having, because we did it because we're nerds and we want to create technology that helps whānau, helps people make better decisions around where they put their kids to sleep, which homes are good for them, things like that. But what we actually ended up creating was, I don't know, a channel in which our vulnerable people can have evidence to state that government policy is creating homes that make them sick. If you don't already know, around the building industry, it wasn't until last year that the building code changed to state that New Zealand homes should reach at least 16 degrees. Now, if you also look at research, you'll find that 16 degrees is the point at which mold grows, depending on whether or not how much moisture it is in the year. And because New Zealand doesn't have much insulation, there is a lot of moisture in the air and there is a lot of mold. You probably already know where mold is growing in the room that you're sitting in, or in your home, or when you're a kid, or when you're at your grandparents' house. And it's actually that mold growth and the spores that they release that creates, that might give someone asthma flare-up, that can create eczema, but also the temperatures in which mold grows. Also, it lowers your immune system so that when someone walks in with a flu or a cold, you're more likely to get it. And it also ensures, well, it also creates the environment in which pneumonia breeds or can be created from, you'll get a cold first, your asthma might flare up, and then you might get pneumonia if the temperatures are low enough and for a consistent amount of time. So that's what we do for Whare Hauora. But when we started to push some of our first proof of concepts out, what we also found was an inequity, not just in housing, but in fuel consumption. So power, the ability to turn on the heater in order to increase the temperature and also bring down the relative humidity. Not a lot of people will turn on their heaters because they perceive that it costs too much. And for a country that makes so much electricity, it is incredibly expensive to have heating in your home, which is also why the government has winter payments for vulnerable families. But at the same time, if you have to choose between rent, kai, or turning on the heater, you will choose the first two first. And so that inequity is still relevant now, even though we have winter payments. And so when COVID happened, we got a massive flurry of people wanting sensors because, like I said before, mold growth occurs when a relative humidity of 60% above 60%, and when the temperature is below 16 degrees. That is also the environmental temperatures for, so if someone walked in with COVID, coughed or sneezed in the room, the microbes would be able to survive in a cold, damp room. So there's also the point at which COVID is less likely to survive, so in temperatures over 27 degrees and in relative humidities of between 40 and 60%. And it has been shown that COVID will die within about 2 hours. And so, yeah, and so there's a lot of information that is there that we know of. It's just that no one knows their temperature straight off the bat. No one knows what their relative humidity is. So they don't know whether or not they're creating environments in which these molds or their respiratory illnesses could flare up or COVID could survive in. Or are you creating an environment where COVID will die? So yeah, this is what Whare Hauora is doing at the moment. So we're trying to get through a change so that we can measure for the environmental factors for COVID and add that into the dashboard as well. And we're going for, because all of our sensors are manufactured in Shenzhen, China, their factory shut down while they were battling COVID. Then we went into lockdown, Now they're spinning back up again, but they couldn't get product to us anyway, even if we wanted it. It's this flow-on effect of COVID, and so it might take us a couple of weeks. We think it'll take us about 7 weeks to get kit into New Zealand, but also because everyone in Shenzhen is building ventilators or ventilator componentry, the pricing has gone up.
So can I jump in there? This is one of the things I sent in my little email is at the moment there's going to be all the shovel-ready infrastructure bids being put in by local government for council. And I kind of look at it and go, why are we going to go and build roads that we can't go and drive in if we've got lockdown? But we have a whole bunch of jobs that have disappeared. Tourism industry, Stephen spoke about that beforehand. We've got a whole bunch of jobs that we don't even know that we need. But manufacturing possibly is one of them because we can't get stuff from China or anywhere else. But we possibly could get materials. And that's what I was thinking, if government's funding something, it should be funding using the data of everybody who's studied, and working out who studied in degrees that now transfer to the jobs we need. If they're not working in them, how do we pull them out, or how do we get them from the dole queue from hospitality into those roles? And then if there's still a need, to be able to use the data to say, we need 10 of these in Dunedin, 30 in Christchurch, 100 in Wellington, and 500 in Auckland. And those are the trainings that we will fund. And it's not going to be art history. It's going to be 3D printing. It's going to be plastic manufacturing. It's going to be how to design a manufacturing plant and get it in, and then we become self-sufficient. So that's the theory. But if you had to, could you get them made here in New Zealand?
Oh yeah, we've already tried it. So our first proof of concept was all entirely made in New Zealand. Our problem is board componentry comes from China because they're willing to mine. Aotearoa isn't willing to mine.
So there's another good one. We have the largest gold reserve left in the country, in the world, that hasn't been dug up, and it sits under a national park. Coming back to tourism, one of the questions I was meant to ask Stephen was, there are over 20 national parks. Name 5. Can anyone name? Could anyone name? I'm going to go to gallery view. Put your hand up if you can name 5 national parks or more. 1 person, 2 people, 3, 4, and that's it. Now there is a person here, so I'm going to do a bit of a rhyme on this one. So there's a person here from a DHB. I won't name them, but they want to speak up. Just give me a shout. I look at this project and go, this is something that Heria and her team have started, and they're doing great. Then Heria spoke at the Digital Divide, and I was the MC, and she shared a fact around the fact that at census time, a lot of people that are in need, that are in these homes, would not put the truth on the census, because if they said there were 9 people living in a state home for 4 people, they'd get evicted and lose the home that they'd lived in for 20 years. The next thing, Housing New Zealand, or whatever it's called, comes out with the need for one of what Heria has created, but including a CO2 measure. So essentially it would read that there's 9 people in that house and could then go and kick them out. So what would happen is the people would never use them, or they would break them and smash them, or get some way around it. So essentially what the point is that there's a lot of, we'll call it bureaucracy. That's a nice label to put on it, because it's not the people, it's the bureaucracy doing this, which is not actually effective. If they actually looked and we used design-led thinking and agile, and went and go, okay, this is the problem. How do we solve the real problem, not solve the imaginary problem? Then we could actually be effective, and we would shift all of the spend from the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff to the preventative measure at the top of the cliff. Does that sort of nail it in a nice way?
Yeah.
You can give it the opinionated way if you like. But I sort of think, what I was going to say is, I think that there's great opportunity to take health budget from the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff and put it at the top of the cliff and support someone like yourself, and doing it in a way that is acceptable to the people. Because another thing that wasn't shared is that the data is shared to the people that it comes from, and permissions are given for it to be used in an anonymous way, and any of the revenue that's generated from the data is shared with Whare Hauora and the individual people. True? So instead of Facebook taking your data and selling it and making millions and you getting nothing from it, they are sharing in the profit. So it's very people orientated. It's the new way of thinking. It's the human way of thinking. So what I'll get you to do is just give us a final statement, just because I've sort of let us run a little bit behind time. So a final closing statement, and then we will give you a round of applause and go to the next stage of this evening.
I would have to say that post-COVID, data is going to be, it's the new gold now, to be honest. But post-COVID, it's going to be even more important. And as we spend more time in our homes due to lockdowns, and because we don't travel as much, our home quality is going to really come into effect and start to reflect on our health. So we as a nation and as a people, we need to start to push back on some of the old thinking before COVID occurred, and you know, it makes me sad that COVID had to occur for us to actually do a thing about this. So yeah, ka pai.
All right. I'm going to go to gallery view. We'll give a round of applause. So on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to skip a breakout room to stay on. We'll get back a little bit of time. We won't skip all breakout rooms, but I'm going to unmute our next speaker, which is Chandan Ori, and put him on spotlight. So he will be now your spotlight. So if you're here at the first one, you would have met Chandan. And just to give a bit of picture, Chandan also has a very inspirational story. And I'm going to have to confess and take ownership. I've been running around like a blue butt fly and didn't think to come back to you and say, hey, this is what's happening. Do you want to look at this? But what I think Chandan is going to talk about almost relates to the similar things, because his message from the last one that a lot of people got onto was think like an entrepreneur. But just go back a step, Chandan is one of our sponsors of AFQY. He has built up a 100-person plus consultancy in the business and technology enablement. Not only that, if you think like an entrepreneur, he also has 3 schools that are operating. So that's a little bit different to technology, but being very entrepreneurial and coming from very humble beginnings. It's a different but similar concept to the story. I'll hand over to Chandan to share with you all now. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan. I must acknowledge my story isn't as inspiration as Gyan's, so absolutely acknowledge that. My name is Chandan. I came to New Zealand in 2002. I do come from a very humble background. I shared with some people that in order to get me admitted to school at the age of 5, my father had to sell his engagement ring because we just didn't have any money, and he didn't want me to lose a year of education. So he sold his engagement ring and then admitted me to school so that I could actually gain my education. And that always stuck with me in terms of the hard work that my parents had done to enable me to where I am. As I said, I arrived in New Zealand in 2002. I was a chartered accountant from India. I was leading audits for very large banks with, you'll be surprised, 2,200 branches. And then when I arrived to New Zealand, it was a different story. The reason I came to New Zealand was I was chatting on Yahoo with one of the Kiwis, and I asked them casually, I said, how long do you work in New Zealand? What does a work week look like? And they said 37.5 hours a week. And I thought, wow, that's a beautiful place. They only work for 2.5 days a week. That's exactly where I have to be, because at the age of 28, I was working 16 to 18 hours a day and 100 hours a week. And I thought, oh, amazing. That's where I have to be. So here I was in New Zealand, and as soon as I arrived, it took me 2 months to find my first job. I got 150 to 200 letters from various people, and it was amazing. All the recruitment agencies had exactly the same template. Hi Chandan, or hello. At this point of time, your skills do not match with what we are looking for. I actually applied for an accounts clerk role while I was a partner in India, and the response I was getting back was, at this point of time, you can't do bookkeeping. In my cover letters, I would write, I will not charge you for the first 3 months. Just give me a break so I can get New Zealand experience. And they wouldn't even read the cover letter. The response I would get from recruitment agencies was, at this point of time, your skills don't match. So I got my first break in Burger King, sweeping floors for 3 days. And after that, I got lucky, because after 3 days, I got my first job with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. And I actually met with one of the persons that is actually online today, Debbie Howard, and she was at Trade New Zealand, or New Zealand Trade and Enterprise at that time, and I worked there for almost a year, trying to make a career, and then from there, after making, I think, hundreds of calls every month to profile people, I finally got a job at BDO, which is an accounting firm. And the reason I got that job was because I didn't actually go through a recruitment agency. I actually interacted with one of the partners, and they actually said to me, when can you join? Because it wasn't to do anything with qualification, because the accounting standards are pretty much the same. The accounting is double entry bookkeeping. So I think the challenge is recruitment agencies were making decisions now when they actually didn't have a clue about what does accounting involve, what does technology involve, what does management consulting involve. The skills are very easily changeable. And my first job at NZTE in 2003 was $24,000 per annum. However, I must say, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Debbie was one of the sweetest persons there. And within the 10 months that I was there, I got a great experience, a lot of love and affection, support, and they increased they doubled my salary in within a year, in actually 10 months, because they could see how much value I was adding. And I kept asking for new work. I would get work, I would deliver, and then I'll go and say, is there something more that I can do, as an example? And they saw what I was delivering. And I must say, they kept increasing my salary. So I doubled my remuneration while I was there. And then I went to BDO. And very quickly, I realized while I was at BDO that I need to get a New Zealand qualification. Otherwise, for my career growth, people will keep asking, do you have a New Zealand qualification? Is it the same? So I went to the Chartered Accountant Institute, and I was a BCom. I was a chartered accountant from India, but my qualification was assessed as if I was not even a graduate. So I had to first go into Massey University, and I had to clear 4 papers. And after I cleared 4 papers, then I was recognized as a graduate by the Chartered Accountant Institute of New Zealand. So I did that. I didn't want to argue. I did it. And then I started doing my CA again, all over again in New Zealand. The silver lining was I was recognized as the Young Chartered Accountant of the Year by the New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants for the Northern region. And I was a finalist nationally in there. Continuing with that, I then continued my journey to become a shareholder director with BDO. I became an equity partner with KPMG, not only in New Zealand, but also ASPAC region. And then I became a managing partner for IBM New Zealand, and then managing partner for IBM in strategic projects, Australia, dealing with the likes of Qantas, Metcash, Myers, and so on. And then the last 3 years, very, very quickly, as an entrepreneur, acquired AGI Education, and then Peter Minton Goldsmith School, and then Suitec Fashion. And Ryan, the fourth one very recently, 3 months ago, was Hungry Creek. And now I have merged the 3 schools into New Zealand School of Art and Fashion, which is Peter Minton Goldsmith School, the Suitec Fashion Academy, and Hungry Creek, to bring bachelors in jewelry making, fashion, art and design all under one roof. And then working hard, more than 37.5 hours a week, to develop Duco Consultancy, which is a 100 people ecosystem across Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and then Sydney, Melbourne. And we have also recently opened an office in Los Angeles in California, coupled with a global delivery center in India to support. We expect to be 200 people in the next 12 to 18 months. And I must say, New Zealand, all of this has been given to me by New Zealand. Proud to be a Kiwi, proud to have worked with the likes of all of you who have supported me in the journey. And I intend to give 100% back to New Zealand. New Zealand is my base, is my home, will always remain so. In COVID, just last words, we have hired 16 New Zealanders and given them jobs in the last 4 weeks. So we are hiring, we are recruiting, and there's a good future. Be entrepreneur, be positive, and then just be resilient. And thank you, New Zealand, for giving me all of this. And back to you, Ryan. That's my story.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Now I'll just click on a few buttons here. And yes, thank you very much. That is a beautiful story. And again, when you actually get to hear the full detail, and there's bits that I've heard more detail, and it is another beautiful story. And it just reminds me of the effort that we can put in. And it's interesting. I think when we're at home, we tend to take things a little bit granted. When I was on my OE, I worked my butt off, and I had the classic scenario where I got told off for showing up all the English people, because I'd turn up at 8 o'clock for an 8:30 start. They'd turn up at 9 o'clock for an 8:30 start. You probably all heard it yourselves or been there yourself. So fantastic story, reminder of inspiration and be an entrepreneur. So in the count of 3, we will all give Chandan thanks. Thank you very much for sharing an inspirational story. Thank you very much for being a sponsor and enabling this evening or this month, and you'll package along with the likes of Guy and both. So thank you very much to Chandan. Thank you very much.
Me.
All right. So what we'll do now is we will quickly skip into a breakout room. We've got the time, and it's opportunity to quick shares to keep the discussion bouncing around the different people. Don't get a long diatribe, and I won't say anything more. I'll be doing exactly what I'm asking you not to do. Have fun having a bit of a yarn, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I'll be off in about 15 minutes.
Getting smaller.
Have to head off, Ryan. I'll see you later.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I moved it half an hour early because I thought that I would miss everyone's dinner time like normal. So we're learning, evolving,
younger kids side of things, but
yeah.
It's always awesome. I will see you next time round.
Okay. Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you so much for your support.
As always. You're awesome.
Ryan, thanks for a good evening. I've got to run and feed the kids and then put them to bed.
Tuck them into the aeroplane, it'll fly.
Cool, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Yeah.
So there's Andrew Little, Emma Alexander. Hello?
I'm just feeding the 10-month-old at the moment, so I'm just off camera a bit.
That's all right.
Sorry, gotta go.
Okay, so it's me talking to me for 5 minutes.
You can chat to me, Ryan. I just can't see you, and I might be a bit distracted while I spoon things in, and you might hear the odd little cry.
No, that's all right. We can deal with that. There's, I guess, with what's going on around New Zealand, a couple of cries from a kid will be fine. That's a good test of your parenting skills, mate, because this is being recorded, so we'll be able to look at this timestamp and say, how many times did Andrew make his 10-month-old kid cry? None at all. What a
good point. You're very good, Charlie. Yeah, no crying. Yeah, good boy. Oh, he's pretty quiet.
Without the camera on, I do feel like I'm drinking by myself here. Although I've got a lot of two drinks.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Give me 20 seconds, and I'll move back in front of the camera. And
you're right if you're sitting in front of the camera feeding. I guess a bit of privacy. You don't want to have the kid on national. That's all right.
I think that'll be okay.
That's all right.
Wander back in front.
Yeah.
So how's everything going in your world at the moment, Ryan?
Pretty good. Pretty busy. So we've got to there, and then we've got 2 more to go. So that's just working things out. Oh, look at you two. Hello.
Okay.
Who's this?
This is Charlie.
Charlie. Oh, that's right. You did say. Sorry.
Yeah, he can't hear you because I've got the headset on, but yeah. But Ryan says hello. Over there. Here we go. Oh, good boy.
Just texting now. So what's for dinner for Charlie? Is it mashed pumpkin pie?
Yeah, some sort of beef and pumpkin mash, I think, today.
Yeah.
Yeah. He quite likes his meat. Yeah. He's a good eater, so that's good.
Sweet. I'm just trying to think how long it's been. But what I might do is pull everyone back in. Has it just been a second, or has it been ages?
I think it's been a couple of minutes.
Yeah. It hasn't been much because you were talking about being off screen. We went through that. How about yourself?
Yeah, interesting times. I mean, it hasn't been too bad in the lockdown, but I'm certainly pretty pleased it's going to be over soon. You must be looking forward to the lockdown coming off and all the everything getting back to normal.
Yeah. It's quite a weird feeling. Like I have moments where I go, fuck, I don't want to get it. Like, because I walked through the park and there were 2 kids who are clearly from different houses because they were different ethnicities, but they could have been adopted brother and sister. But the fact they were snogging each other hard out, and probably they weren't, and also they were sitting on the park bench. So they were leaving whatever they were leaving on the park bench. They saw me and then sort of got up and scampered in opposite directions, which told me they come from different places. And of course, they had rubbish there. So I said, "Oi, get your ass back here and pick up that rubbish. Don't leave it here with your germs on." And they looked at me for a second and they went back, got their rubbish and took it off. But like, people can carry it, especially kids can carry it and not even be symptomatic and give it to an old person who then dies. So
absolutely.
They're not listening to the announcements. They're not really aware. They're just doing the sort of basics that they're told to do. And then when they go, "Oh, we're about to come out of level 3, it's all sweet. We'll go." So up where I live by Glendine Roundabout, it was almost like a normal day. Not a normal weekend day, but almost like a normal day when everyone was at work and there was heaps of cars. Like I couldn't go across the road if I had to road because there was a queue of 10 cars. Now, why is there could be 10 cars, but why a queue of them all jammed up, But anyway, hopefully it's all good worry for no bad results.
Yeah. What about the dog walking? Have you found the whole dog poo thing? Because around where I live, normally it's pretty clean, but all of a sudden there's just dog poo everywhere. It's like people that wouldn't normally walk their dogs are suddenly walking them and they don't know how to clean up.
Oh, we've always used bags. We've got biodegradable bags. So we always clean up. But yeah, some people don't.
No, it just seems to be a sudden thing. Like
or a particular spot that they like. Cause yeah. All right, well, let's bring everyone back, and we'll get the next two speakers through. So yeah, it is a bit of a problem. I had a bit of a run-in actually with a guy walking his dog because he didn't leash his dog. And I said to him, oh, well, I've just asked you to, so please respect that. That's good enough reason alone. But then I said that if you're letting everyone touch your dog because he's running up to them, someone who's carrying it could put it on his hair. His hair touches my dog's hair. I touch my dog, and now I've got it, or I give it to someone else. That's how it transfers. And he was like, oh, really? I was like, yes, really. You think I would bother saying it? Like, do you think I would bother having an argument with you if it wasn't true?
It can stay on there for a couple of days, right? So
yeah, that's what he was talking about. Was the fact that it can, on metallic surfaces, it can live up to 9 days. I read in one report, whether that's actually valid or not. So yeah,
but it's long enough anyway, right?
Yeah. So everyone's coming back in. I better put you on mute. Those that overheard the discussion, we're talking about, I hear the chinking of bottles in the background. That's good to know. But we were just talking about in our breakout room about the transfer of COVID-19 and how I had a person with their dog who hadn't leashed it, and their dog ran up to mine, and I was trying to ask the guy to leash it, and he said, "Oh, had to go. Oh, dogs can't get it." And when I explained that I had just requested him to do it, he should do it for that sake alone. But B, if he's letting everyone pat his dog, someone could put it on the dog, then it transfers from his dog to my dog when they touch, and then I pat my dog, and I get it from that. And he was quite surprised that that could happen, or that he could get it from a door handle or a park bench or anything else. So it was quite mind-blowing. This guy basically hasn't read a thing, watched any announcement or anything, and was quite happily letting his dog run up to everybody and anybody. But we're all back in here, so let's get on to our next speaker. Hope you all had fun in the breakout room, some good discussions. And our next speaker is Aidan Keneally. So I'm just going to go and get Aidan and be able to introduce him. So unmute. There we go. And spotlight. So if you go to speaker view, you should all see Aidan there. The rock star with the guitar and the long hair. We're going to get him to thrash it out to someone, some good piece of heavy metal or something. But to introduce Aidan,
I can do it on mute.
You can do it on mute. And so I'll introduce Aidan quickly, and then we'll hand over. So in 2013, Aidan co-founded EMGN.com, which would go on to become the world's fastest growing and largest entertainment website of its time. Within its first year, EMGN, a four-letter acronym, AFQY, EMGN, hope for AFQY, yeah. It was a global multi-million-dollar business which sustained profits, exponential growth, and without the need to external capital. Following a successful exit in 2017, Aidan started mentoring founders voluntarily as a way to occupy time, and now advises numerous high-growth startups founders from around the world professionally to help improve their competencies and how they run their business. And you were going to, I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about VCs and funding world equality, or have I just completely advised with that one? I'll hand over to you. Time to rock out.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks for that introduction. I guess I just want to acknowledge that how cool the speaker's been, and so thanks for organising such a cool event. It's been really awesome to hear everyone's personal stories today, and I guess an insight into tourism as well. That's really, really good. Yeah, so I guess my name is Aidan, and I'm a founder advisor, for want of a better word. And so when Ryan asked me to speak, I really had no idea what might be of use to anyone, but I put some thought into it, and I sort of asked myself, what would be the one thing that I would change in the startup world that would have the most impact on improving the world? Because we're sort of all kind of thinking about that at the moment. And I had an interesting chat with a VC last week, and it really got me thinking about how we could probably make some key changes to how venture capital is invested that would lead towards sort of better wealth equality. And I know I only have 5 minutes, so I've created a bit of a brief sort of summary thought experiment as to how that might work, and I trust it's going to be of interest. So I guess the first point is really want to explain what venture capital is. And straight up, the vast majority of international venture capital is actually a bit of a Ponzi scheme. So VCs make their primary income on this fees under management percentage, where they charge 2% of total funds in their care, and they don't really make a large amount from liquidity events. It's not completely true, but in general terms, right? And so their model is to raise funds from investors and allocate portions of these funds to companies over sequential capital rounds. And each capital raise results in a higher valuation than the last, and that brings a paper valuation or a paper return to the VC fund. So VCs leverage to raise even bigger funds from investors, so they can do the whole thing over again at larger scales. Now, VCs don't typically back companies that support themselves with retained earnings, as they don't fit their sort of model for growth. And as long as a company is reliant on venture capital to grow, they don't really care about what the company produces. Rough statement, but sort of generally true. And it's because they're in the business of raising funds and allocating capital, not backing sound businesses that produce value for society. So they back businesses that can spend money, and the quicker they can do that spending, the better it is for the VC. Now, the results of this model is actually profound on the global economy, and it's because a very small percentage of the total VC companies that get backed and succeed to an IPO, well, it's very small, right? And that in itself isn't really a problem, but there is a problem when there's but where there is an issue is that these startups, when they enter the public market, often lose a lot of their value really rapidly due to their overvalued stock and their poor commercial fundamentals. And sort of an example of this is in May 2019, Uber IPO'd with a share price of $45, and that gave it a market cap of $82.4 billion. Now, this valuation was in spite of Uber's second quarter losses for 2019 being $5.2 billion. So that's a loss of $5.2 billion in a quarter. And so subsequent to the IPO, the share price has since halved, meaning that $36 billion has just disappeared in less than a year. And that's the Ponzi scheme. A few get really rich, inflating the price of startup companies on the private market, and the majority suffer losses when they go public. And as a consequence of how the VCs generate their returns and their sort of ideologies and methodologies, and it sort of influences what they invest in and how. So I kind of thought about it and thought, well, there's an opportunity for New Zealand to lead a bit of a change here if we're up to it. And we can start by first admitting that both the ideas of shareholder value at all cost and growth at all cost mentalities aren't really good for a fair economy. And the second thing we can do is instill an ethos in our VCs to back companies that value capital efficiency and reasonable growth with foreseeable profitability over the other types of businesses. And we want them to be backing companies that produce things of value. So we think ventilators over the next CRM iteration, right? And we want them to build proper businesses upon solid time-tested commercial principles. And I guess the businesses that account for stakeholders, ensuring their social and environmental impacts are also accounted for, is what we can start expecting these people to invest in, and making sure that they're also profitable doing this. And so if we take this approach, yes, VCs will lose their ability to generate 1,000 times returns, and yes, they won't have the sole benefit, they won't be the sole beneficiaries of the capital gains that successful high growth businesses attract, but we will have more companies that build more things of use. They will employ more people. They'll be more resilient to the increasing number and severity of crisis that we encounter globally. And so how does this address wealth equality, right? So such an investment approach would actually allow companies to IPO earlier, which allows the public markets to recapture the capital gains of successful high growth businesses. Then companies like Sharesies, who offer anyone the ability to enter the stock market with small value investments, can provide a way for New Zealanders to actually take advantage of New Zealand-owned high-growth startups and benefit from their growth over time. So by offering a simple and clear way for all New Zealanders to gain exposure to these startups, these high-growth startups, we would go some way to improving the economic situations of all of our low-wage workers. And why this is important, and why it's an important time to consider this, is because periods of crisis always highlight two things in our society. We've kind of talked about a few of them today. Is that the first is our low-paid workers are the true MVPs of our economies and society. So during a bushfire, it's the volunteer firefighters that save the day. And as an example, in the pandemic, it's the orderlies, nurses, checkout workers, and courier drivers that are keeping our society going. And so in times of crisis, we rely on our low-wage workers to get us through, and we need these people to maintain our society. And the second is then, without fail, this group within our society are always the ones disproportionately affected negatively in the aftermath of the crisis. Because they have minimal assets, low wages, substandard and crowded homes, and jobs that are most at risk of being made redundant. They're at the bottom of that wealth divide, and the economic consequences of natural disasters like this pandemic always highlight that. And it's not good enough that in times of prosperity we forget this and accept that it's okay to distribute all our capital and wealth to a few businesses that produce nothing really of value for society and get a few people rich. And so that's kind of what needs to change. And just to sum all this up, so because VCs are the gatekeepers of capital for startup businesses, we need to challenge them to change their business models and return requirements. And if we do this, they'll invest in different kinds of business models themselves. The downstream effect of all this will be an opportunity for more people to benefit from the capital growth of successful startups, which currently is actually only open to a select few. So I think New Zealand is in the perfect position to lead such a change because of who we are and how we think, and just simply how easy it is to do business here. You know, we have a track record of challenging the world on its norms, and it's just in our DNA. And so that's my rough summary of how New Zealand VCs could lead the way to wealth equality in roughly 5 minutes, and I hope that was sort of entertaining for everyone.
Absolutely was, and I'm going to confess I was trying to keep up with Tex's questions, and even if I wasn't, I probably wouldn't quite understand it all this time. So I'm going to watch. What my point was, and this might sound a little bit whatever, but I said, well, that's probably why they don't want everyone to understand financial literacy, because when they understand what a rort it is and all the bullshit that goes in it, then the world will go, hang on, you 1% with all the money are not fucking getting away with that bullshit anymore. And it's like a mate of mine who's big in the blockchain space, in Bitcoin back in the early days. He'd talk about bonds and derivatives and securities. And it's like, so you can, so what is it? Options. So you buy your coffee today, and the value, the exchange rate's this, so you can actually buy an option on the exchange rate being this in 6 months. And if it is, and it's better, then you get to keep it. And if it's worse, then you can decide to sell it down or something. So basically, you can, and then you can insure it, and then you can do this with it. And it's like, so when you talk about being a Ponzi scheme, it's like this is a thing. We're purchasing coffee, but now we can purchase coffee with this and with this and with this, and then there's 20 different iterations of which people make money on it. At the end of the day, it means that the person who makes the coffee gets fuck all. Excuse my French, but that's about it.
I think the issue is if it's the most efficient way to hoard capital to a few people, right? And you can overinflate the pricing however you want. And it also selects for businesses that are really efficient at spending for high growth, they call it, which is just user acquisition. It doesn't have any really commercial validity to it. And because of that, we see, you know, the Ubers, WeWorks of the world being where all of the capital really is, and you don't get people building ventilators, you don't get people doing all this kind of really important stuff for our society. And so
why do we need another?
That's my
why do we need another Formula One car? Like, so my rhetorical question that I give to people is, say you're Richard Branson, and you've got enough to have a Formula One car company, you're going to invest $5 million on researching a new tyre that shaves 3 seconds off the track time, or you could put that money into a global fund with everyone else who can afford to see that disappear and not really worry about it, and that lifts second and third world to first world levels. It's not about giving people handout and doles or anything like that. It's just meaning that you don't die of dysentery in the third world because you get the medicine like you would in the first world. So a kid who normally would die of dysentery in the third world goes on to study and become a contributor to the globe, and invents a new tyre that shaves 10 seconds off the track time, but for a cost of $2 only. And then if you apply that across every other technology, you can, someone that can achieve that. So imagine all these minds that are dying because of dysentery in the third world that could be coming on to invent the next laser, the next quantum computing, beam me up, Scotty. And instead of that happening, that mind is dying with dysentery before they get past it. So very big. I think we need an actual dedicated session to this. And the one thing I was going to say was, Ted said, explain the 2 and 20. 2 and 20, is that what it was? Does that make sense? Explain the 2 20. 2 and 20. Explain 2 and 20 to the group. What does he mean? What is he on about?
I'm not sure what he means by 2 and 20. Sorry.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That's right.
About private equity. Yeah. No. I mean, it is a lot more nuanced and complicated than that, but it doesn't have to be. And in general, I think, yeah.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll park over there. We'll go into a breakout room, and then we'll come back with Peter Fletcher Dobson. Thank you so much, because that is a sort of not the total global economic view, but the VC and why do we have, like, I look at my parting thought is I look at adverts for these things, and then I look at the next advert, which is children dying in different parts of the world. Now we have COVID-19. All the rich people are dying in different parts of the world. Fuck, we better do something about that. Why does it take money? Why does it take money to drive doing something about it? We're doing it for humans, not because money. Yeah, anyway, I think everyone's got me. We'll go breakout room.
I've got. And sorry, I'll ask the 2 and 20 thing is 2% management fee, and it's a 20% on carry. So the VCs actually make 20% once they return the fund. That answers that in 2 seconds. There we go. Yep.
So you can all talk about all the different ideas and theories. I will pop you into breakout rooms now. Right. So when we come back, we'll hear from Peter Fletcher Dobson, and then we will either wrap up or we will continue to discuss. You're more than welcome. I will be sticking around to get stuck into some of these subjects, and hope you will too. So let's see who's still left here with me in the main room. The last few people are disappearing. Duana, Jacques. Oh look, we've got. So just let me know that Jacques is in South Africa at the moment. Duana is from Waikato. I'm from Otago, and when the Springboks toured in '94, Otago was the only province to beat South Africa. And I have got a photo of me holding the Springboks head in the referees' room at Carisbrook, the House of Pain, not the current stadium. So I just thought I'd drop that in there for all you fans, rugby fans out there. I got to unmute you. Hang on. Does that help?
That's better. That's better.
That's a good trick.
Right. Cool.
I think he's already added me on LinkedIn.
Okay. So what's your team, Jacques?
Well, obviously the Springboks.
yeah, but what's your local team?
The Bulls, Blue Bulls. Yeah. It's like a brother in jail. You don't talk about
it. Yes. So I've just got a comment. There's an amazing photo of the South African team holding up the World Cup, with the captain with it like that, and then there's a little halfback popping out from under his arm that almost looks like he's. It looks like it's like a bunch of orcs, and he's a little elf or whatever. The Hobbit. It's quite. Was it not? No, it's not. No, but the little halfback shit. He was amazing. How is it over in South Africa now with the other World Cup win?
Well, that's no longer the talk of the town. It's all the talks now are COVID-19. So that seems to have passed. Yeah.
But did it make a big impact? Did it start to get people talking in friendly ways to move things forward, or is South Africa?
Yeah, definitely. It did have a very good impact. But the lockdown in South Africa is very different to what it is in other first world countries like New Zealand. Now, with our poverty and people living on top of each other in the rural areas, a lot of like 30, 40 houses sharing one toilet. So that's why it's very strict in South Africa. You're not allowed to leave your house, walk your dog, exercise or anything. apart from going out to get essential goods. And you have to do that. It has to be this strict. Otherwise, because those people live in a 5x5 little house and there's 4 or 5 people living in there, and they don't even have a toilet inside the house. How you cannot contain them in their houses, and if they start walking out and about, and it becomes really problematic. So we're quite fortunate if you own a house in South Africa and you don't live in those rural communities.
Yes, I can imagine. And there'll be similar in a whole range of parts of the world, like favelas in Brazil, and other places I probably don't even know about. But it'd be interesting to understand how it's all sort of being managed and happening. It must have quite a big effect. Yeah. Got me thinking. Big subject. Hey.
I think we're doing very well under the circumstances. We were very early to go on lockdown, very, very much like New Zealand. I think also before we first had our first death, we went into lockdown. I think we managed the situation well. And we've got 50 million people versus 5 million.
And how many deaths have you had?
We are sitting on 65.
Oh, wow. That is low proportionately, isn't it? So what is it, 50 million?
600, we're only on 6,335 cases.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're doing very well.
And then there may be an element of it not being, not because it's not tried to, but not accurately reported with I don't know what you officially meant to call them. I think of the term shantytown, but those places that I've only really seen on TV, so I don't understand it. Yeah. And how about you, Diana? How's Waikato?
Good.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
So Diana's a bit of a rugby fan. Not that I'll
Yeah,
the secrets, but I've got a All Black jersey over here I could show you.
You got a what? Signed?
Yeah, so I've got about 5, I think. But I've got one that's in a massive presentation case with full red velvet backing, and it's a full jersey. And it was for my 21st. So I used to do the Highlanders advertising, and I did the only All Blacks work outside of Saatchi's, which was a poster that said, "Our boys, our crowd, our town." It was the first test match with Carisbrook in 15 years. So we did the poster mock-up and sent it through Otago to NZRFU, and they said, "Shit, that's choice, go for it." So it was Kane Randall, Jeff Wilson, Josh Cromfeld, Case Muse or Carl Hoft. Either way, there was originally four guys on the ad, and then there was an injury, and the other prop got called in. Can't remember which one it was, Carl or Case. And there you go. So I told you she was a fan. She knows and I don't. I had to do all the work on the ad. So we got called at 11:30 at night to redo the ad with the 5th person in it, and we had to basically put one of the heads. We had to put Case's head from his Otago photos on Carl's All Black body, and put them at opposite ends so they didn't look like those bodies are the same.
Yeah. So who did the advertising? Saatchi and Saatchi?
No, we did. So we are the only people outside of Saatchi's ever, and we won all these awards for it. And then the next year I believe, I better be careful because this is a recording, I believe they used our slogan with a different image. Our boys out.
I jumped on a webinar with Kevin Roberts the other day. It was really good.
Oh yeah, the nugget.
Yeah, really, really good. So those unfiltered webinars with Jack Miller.
Oh, I didn't realise he was doing them. Shit.
One a week. Like he did another one on Wednesday about technology. Someone with it. I'll email it to you.
Okay. While we're talking, I'm just going to close all the rooms and get us back to the last speaker. So feel free to keep talking, but just realise that we're going to have everyone
coming back.
Yes. That's amazing. So we, Jacques, the original were 5:30 to 7:30 because it was an in-person event, and that was the time to get from work to here. And everyone at 7 o'clock started dropping off because they're going off for dinner. So I shifted it to 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And yes, we have gone over, but it was meant to be finished at 7 o'clock. Terrible timekeeper. So yeah, so moving 5 to 7 was meant to solve that. Here we go, people. Here's our coming up for our last speaker. Oh, waiting on a few people to come back, hopefully. Or it could be quite a tight knit bunch. Our last speaker, Peter, mate. I might have done you a disservice.
Oh, that's
Hang
all
on,
good.
here we go. Oh, there we go.
Last minute rush.
Yeah. So no one wanted to come back and talk to me. They wanted to keep having the discussions. Breakout rooms are awesome.
5 to 10 minutes, but I've
Yeah,
got to be on
brilliant.
at 7:30 anyway. So.
Yep. No, that's all right. We're going to get on there. So I'm going to get hashtag. Hang on, let's mute all of you. There. Hashtag PFD, better known as Peter Fletcher Dobson. So there's Peter. When Peter and I met, he was I'm not sure if it was head of digital or CDO, but something digital and very senior at Kiwi Bank. He's got a great background in technology, and I remember one of his stories about how when he started at Kiwi Bank to what it was by the time he left, in terms of it starting as a startup and then becoming the massive organisation it is now, and noticing the difference from startup times to becoming a big company. He then went out and in his travels consulting, got picked up by the BCITO, which is the Building Construction Training Organisation. And I hope I'm not going to steal your thunder, but was talking about the fact that they had no digital training, and that there was 4 pages of how to hold a hammer and put a nail in, but not one regarding how to use a nail gun. Now, of course, if you look at a building site, everybody uses a nail gun, barely anybody uses a hammer. So a bit of a job as a GM of digital, the building construction industry. And of course, we mentioned these shovel-ready projects that are all coming in, billions of dollars worth that the government's going to borrow, so that we can all retrain. If you don't have a job, you can retrain to, I don't know, dig holes, put hammer and nails, and you will probably go through the BCITO to learn how to do that, and therefore Peter's great work will be involved in ensuring you can learn how to do that. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Peter. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. So the American President Roosevelt said, if you're doing public speaking, be sincere, brief, and seated. And some of us are waiting for our dinner, so I'll definitely be brief, and we're all sitting down, so that's good. Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, I've been working 20 years in tech. I set up New Zealand's first FinTech accelerator, so it was really interesting listening to Aidan. Sharesies was one of my teams that came out of that. So good on them. They've done really well. After leaving Kiwi Bank, I set up Atamai, which is a digital consultancy looking to work with Kiwi medium and small businesses to help them do digital transformation faster, because so many digital transformations fail. So we work with businesses that have got a really strong kaupapa for New Zealand. Manakitanga, kaitiakitanga are really important principles to us. BCITO absolutely fits into that slot. So BCITO is the Building Construction Industry Training Organisation. They're the people that train all the apprentices that build our buildings. So if you get trained badly, you get shit buildings. And we've had that before with leaky buildings in the past. They've got 13,000 apprentices across 15 trades, and the industry actually needs to double that number. This is before COVID hit. I'll talk about that pretty shortly. So BCITO supports the apprentice and the employer to ensure that we've got the right skills in the industry, and also with matchmaking of getting apprentices jobs with employers. So they got a really person-to-person model where they actually, training advisors will go onto a building site and they give learning support, pastoral care, and support the employer in a very physical way. And when you become an apprentice, you get a box of books. And so when you think about it, these are people that have probably left school because they didn't really like books and reading, and to learn the theory side of it, they're given a box of books. So there's a real challenge there around digital, because digital is obviously coming strong into education. So that's BCITO. What's happening with construction? So COVID-19 stopped the whole country. It stopped construction. Construction is a boom and bust industry. It gets hit 10 times harder than the economy. So after GFC, the New Zealand economy took a negative 2% hit. The construction industry took a negative 9% hit. It gets hit much harder and it takes a lot longer to come out. So COVID-19 is catastrophic for the construction industry. On the news last night, I saw there's a food line at Auckland City Mission, and they interviewed a bunch of builders that have been laid off. So that's happening now. And we've already got a housing crisis, as we know. So those shovel-ready government infrastructure projects, they're fantastic. They're mainly focused on transport. 80% of the construction industry in New Zealand is based around residential, so that's housing. So we've got the other factor of the housing market taking an absolute tanking. Westpac's predicting a negative 9% drop in the value of houses in the second half of this year, and probably taking until about 2022 to even start picking up. What that means is for consumer confidence, buying that new house. If you're lucky to sell your house for a decent value, you'll probably need to try to do it now. With the restrictions of lockdown, obviously that impedes that. And doing that renovation, most people are going to go quite cautious. So it's going to be really tough for the construction industry. Pretty much like Stephen was outlining, maybe not as dramatic as what's happened with tourism, but construction is going to suffer. So the other fact is that the construction industry is built up of SMEs. 96% of construction businesses have 10 or fewer employees. So they're smaller companies, and they'll go over quicker because they won't have the reserves of like your Fletchers or bigger construction companies. So the challenges that we've been looking at BCITO are threefold. So there's this long-standing issue around giving apprentices the sort of learning support that they actually need, probably through digital rather than a box of books. Lockdown has meant that this person-to-person model of going onto a site doesn't happen anymore. So you certainly in lockdown, construction sites aren't working. Even after lockdown, there's going to be social distancing, essential workers only. So you can't do that assessment of apprentices' work on site. And even when that lifts, there is going to be a backlog, and sites will be super busy with people just trying to get stuff built as quickly as possible. So having those conversations on site with an employer and apprentice about how their training is going probably isn't going to happen. The other really horrendous thing is obviously layoffs for apprentices. And so how BCITO is funded by government, funded by industry, how can we keep those apprentices in the system? So they can still be learning even while they're not working, that we can then match make them and hopefully find them potential jobs when things start to pick up. So three pretty big challenges. On April the 20th, so 3 days before we went into lockdown, we made the decision to fast track part of our digital strategy, which was to create a digital tool that would enable remote assessment of apprentices, so they could upload their work. They could take photographs, video, and they could be assessed remotely by a training advisor. We'd put in all the learning material that's in the books that will go onto this digital app, and also creates a digital communication channel where they can talk to apprentices and employers and training advisors. They can have those conversations at a time that makes sense for them. So probably in the evening, maybe in the early morning, because builders get up pretty early, but not necessarily having to sort of go in and inconvenience them on the site during the day. So I say we kicked it off on March the 20th. We've gone into a pilot this week, and we're rolling out to all our apprentices next week. So that's, what are we talking about, 4 or 5 weeks, which has suddenly thrust BCITO into the digital age, which has been quite extraordinary. And the outtakes that I take from this experience is one, never waste a crisis. So Winston Churchill's famous dictum. So we've been making decisions that will probably take months and minutes, literally. Also, today is the best time to act every day on anything. Just do it, never wait for tomorrow. That's really what I learned from the startup world, and it applies just as much to an organisation like BCITO, where we are now. remote working, the technology that we're using, that's driven collaboration in an amazing way. You know, there's no waiting for people to turn up for Zoom meetings because you just have to click on the button and you're kind of there. And for being a national organisation, suddenly we've been able to pull in people from all around the place rather than just sort of having a head office centric approach. And the other thing is BCIDO has got a big whānau culture, and this COVID-19 has accelerated that feeling of we're all in this together, that we can make a difference to small businesses and apprentices, and that we can use technology so no one gets left behind. So that's my whistle-stop tour, because I know we're short on time, of what's been happening in the construction industry.
That's fantastic. And I better just mention that I designed and created the practical training course for the NZIA for the E2AS1. In practical language, the NZIA, the New Zealand Institute of Architects, and the E2AS1 is leaky building syndrome. But I won't go into that. But when you're talking about, you know, you can't go on site, can't do anything, that's what I ran away and got. I was like, hang on, there it is. This is a New Zealand designed and made version of the GoPro, and I've got a chest strap, and I was going to do some videos.
Oh, nice.
I was going to do some videos around the garden of Ryan the Lion being bored in COVID-19. Never quite got to it. Maybe I have a few more beers, and we will. But I just thought, yeah, well, there's all these things. And what it comes back to is, do we have the developers to develop the computer vision so that as you record all of this, as they're doing their work or whatever happens, that they can have things highlighted to them. But what I'm going to do is just get everybody unmuted so we can give you a round of applause and great thanks. So if I go, hang on, let me take you off spotlight so we can see everybody. And on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, well done.
Yay, go Peter! Yay!
So now we are through all the speakers, and we are, as usual, I'll say, half an hour over time. So if you have to run, obviously we won't be offended. Thank you very much for sticking through to the end. My apologies for not keeping on time. I had a beautiful time schedule, had it all worked out. The beginning was great. As we went through, I somehow stuffed up, so my apologies. But I will just mute everybody. So if you have noise in the background, mute yourself so I can take everybody else off mute. We need some mute responsibility. That's you, Jeff. Good on you, mate. Would you like to go into some breakout rooms for the last week better, or would you like to stay all in here as a group for group share discussion?
Breakout room.
Breakout rooms. Okay, let's do breakout rooms. Here we go. We've got 20 participants. We will go with 5.
Do you have to do the math each time?
Yes, I do.
Yes, he does.
Do you need a calculator, Ryan?
No. Go into your breakout rooms and talk to each other. Don't tease me. So do I get left in a breakout room? There we go. There we go. Look at us. Hang on. Unmute all. So we've got, Tex. Thought we were going to have Tex and Aiden. Just you and me, Aiden, unless you leave me as well. Aiden, are you there? Hello? Oh, it is just me.
Bush track. I've really enjoyed it. I've got from 5,000 unanswered emails to 3,500. I was really got a bit bored with it.
That's a really good start.
I'm in a guest house and I'm meant to be renovating the main house, and it's empty, and I'm sort of not got around. I've got quite a bit done actually, but the issue for me is fucking delusional comes to mind about people discussing the economic consequences of COVID. If you're a frontline medical worker, if you're a medical person, you must be working in medical, of course, absolutely. Everybody must support you. But if you're not, you must be discussing how to create jobs in New Zealand. And even on this call tonight, I was really stunned when somebody thought that domestic tourism would take off and that the $7 billion of international expenditure would create $7 billion of domestic expenditure. You know, the people, those $7 billion, sorry? The $7 billion.
I think that was Ryan that said that.
I did ask.
Here we can grill him. He's right here.
I don't mind being called fucking delusional, because it's a great way to open up for everybody who has no idea to learn from people like Tex.
The issue is the lack of confidence in anybody's spending is order of magnitude. The $7 billion of consumers that spent international travel last year, one of the partners would have lost their job and the others will be taking a 20 or 30% pay cut. There will be domestic tourism because it's great for mental health, but it'll be a camping trip. And Ryan, I wasn't mentioning that you were delusional.
No, I know you are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to connect those dots. I don't think he's delusional. It was an interesting question.
Good expectation. When I say delusional, it's actually the person I met on the beach who was talking about his 4-week holiday, and he couldn't understand that he didn't have a job because he thought he had a building site to go back to, but he's got one building project for 6 months, and then he's going to run out of steam.
Do you mind if I just quickly jump in for a second? You mentioned about New Zealand, the tourism slowdown and things like that. So I've had a little bit of experience in this in the past 6 months prior to lockdown, in the sense that over the Christmas period, I jumped in a camper van with my young family and we went venturing around the lower South Island, and the tourism count was very low, and the places that we stayed all said the same thing, that they had seen a major turn down. I also have a friend of mine who runs a rather large and prominent hospitality service in Napier, and he said that his feeling on the whole thing is that the young travellers that he typically sees are becoming ever more aware of climate change and are less likely to jump in a plane and travel from Germany or those European countries to come to New Zealand. So even before lockdown had occurred, certain people in the tourism space had seen these slowdowns occurring, and then this has just kind of been a nail in the coffin for them. I mean, this particular guy in Hastings has got a $9,000 a month rent bill that he can't pay because he's
no, I totally get it. But the first week of lockdown, this guy mentioned to me, a senior government official, I'd rather not say who he was, bloody senior. I'm on this call with him. I've got quite a good relationship with him. Been working with him for 2 years on another project. And he basically goes, a lot of people in Wellington and Treasury don't think tourism is coming back this decade, And
I would totally see that happening.
And the issue is, my view is, by this time next year, there'll be one, maybe two New Zealand banks owned by the government, because the level of debt exposure in tourist assets is out of control. And to repurpose those major tourist assets can be very, very difficult quite quickly. And
I mean, I'm down in Dunedin, and they recently redesigned the centre of Dunedin around making it pedestrian friendly as a trial. And the local operators there just screamed, hey, you're dropping people on the cruise ships one street across, and it's had an impact. And now there's just literally no one. The whole place is dead. And if they complain about a bus getting dropped off a street away, let alone no one turning up at all, you could only imagine that the whole local business, small businesses designed around tourism down here will just completely collapse.
My delusional.
It's a very interesting time.
I'm going to jump in there and say, I'm going to go back to the main room, and then I'm going to call everyone back out. So you can come back as you please. You'll get a limit. But I'm glad I jumped in to listen to this. Good stuff.
Well, essentially, Ryan, people have completely undercooked the seriousness of the slowdown in tourism. And I enjoyed the numbers of Stephen's presentation. But he's a government employee, and he can't be alarmist in his messaging about the industry transition. And the bottleneck monopolies that prevent us being cost competitive are the airport and the airlines. And essentially, as of 2 weeks ago, we're in a bubble with Aussie. We're competing against regional Australia for tourism. And our domestic market is actually 22 million people. It's not 5. And
they need to be creative about bringing people over here.
No,
and as you say, innovative about creating new jobs, because things have changed.
I have the answer for that, but I'll...
Oh, go on, Ryan. You jump back into your main session and tell everybody how amazing your idea is. We were looking forward to hearing from it.
I'll talk to a few people on
Tex,
private.
I think we'll have about 60 seconds after Ryan leaves. If he's kind, he might give us 2 minutes, but we could always talk later.
I'm here alone. Oh, Peter's first back.
Oh, he is. God, first out of the breakout room.
Oh, there we go. There we go. It's you. It's you.
What's that breakout room?
Yeah, I've called everyone back because it's probably now time for us to all go and have some dinner. Why?
Sounds good.
And
Ron,
oh, one thing I totally forgot. Sandra.
Hey, how are you?
Apologies.
No, it's fine. I've just been well, I shouldn't say it, beavering away.
No, that's fine.
Working away.
So I don't know if any of you have seen any of the cartoons that have been coming out, but Sandra is a bit of a gun.
Hey.
She is also Sandra Gunn.
Mm-hmm.
What is it called? Graphic capture. Have you got anything? Have you got anything you can hold in front of the screen at this point, or is that a bit too early?
I'm working on Peter Fletcher Dobson's Never Waste a Crisis.
Yeah. There we go.
Got a wee way to go still, but yeah, I'm just sort of. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm jealous.
Can you see that?
Love that. Very nice.
I don't know.
Hold it up closer.
I
and you talk.
Oh wow.
So what I do is I try and capture their key points. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes they could be offensive. So I try and put a little bit of a joke in. But it's always really important to capture what they're really talking about. Don't try and change their words too much. So, and then this will be accompanied with various icons that come to me.
Yeah.
And
so
are you way too clever?
Out of the blue, I got this message from this lady who I didn't know. We'd only just connected actually, and she said, "Oh, do you mind if I do some graphic capture of the event?" And I had no idea what it was, but I was just like, "Yeah, it sounds cool. That sounds lovely." And then the next thing I got a message through LinkedIn with a Dropbox with all of these, you know how it's like the cartoon that's sort of like the explanation of all the key points. So if you think about a picture says 1,000 words, this picture says like 10,000 words because it says what Peter said, it said what Aidan said, it said what Stephen said, and it's really cool. So Sandra has done the second event. This is our third event, and we'll be publishing them with great thanks to Sandra's efforts. So
thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Is this a side gig at the moment, Sandra?
Yeah, it's my side gig. I'm a software product owner by day.
Oh, awesome!
Awesome.
And do you So can I ask? Do you freehand draw those on some kind of a tablet there?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool! Awesome.
Amazing.
I'd love to have a look at that too. That looks fun.
Yeah.
I was just looking at something similar with an international supplier.
gotta go local. Gotta go local.
Oh well, no, I wasn't looking to purchase it. I was just really interested in the look, and it's a great way to summarise visually.
Yeah.
Also speaking, Mr. BCITO Peter, talking about those visual learners.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Have you ever seen? There's one, David Marquette. There's an online YouTube version where someone basically tells his whole story through exactly that. And it's actually really easy because it's a very complicated story to talk about a submariner. But it's a really, I love it. So Sandra, you're going to be stalked now.
I'll just be straight up. I'm just going to say hi and connect.
Yeah, side hustle might not be too much of a side hustle. So how's everybody doing? We're few, and if you want to drop off, just feel like just go for it. Don't worry. Oh, we do have Alison. That's right. we meant to have a lady that I don't think she turned up, but she was from Switzerland and she was really keen to attend. So she's got a ticket, but didn't make it. Hopefully that wasn't because of Eventbrite, but yeah, there was a few people from around the world that wanted to. Well, there we go, Tourism NZ. People wanted to come and join this to find out what's happening in New Zealand because it's
Totally. I've got a client in Washington I'd like to join. Is that possible, Ryan?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Awesome.
Get
Come
those
get some Kiwi. Come some get some Kiwi ways in them.
Well, it's interesting.
They need it.
The Hobbiton had just shut and laid off 250 something staff, and Pete Yates, who the technology people will probably know as a CEO CIO around the industry, had made a post about it. And I said, I'd just done the first AFQ online. I said, shit, why don't you go online and have the same guides walking around with a gimbal and a camera, and instead of it being $85 for a real life experience, it's $5, and the whole world can come. So you could have up to 500 or 1,000 people on a Zoom call doing at $5 a pop, doing a tour and saying, this is Frodo's room, and this is where Frodo slept, and this is where Gandalf smoked his pipe, and if you want to smoke some of Gandalf's pipe, you can join me. Or whatever the case, but you get the same tour, but instead of being there in person, listening to the in person, you would have the video version of it. So just
someone asked the question about to Stephen, I think about virtual tourism, and Hobbiton just jumped into my head. It'd be like, imagine if you go and like actually play a game in Hobbiton, and then you get some rewards as you're going through that you can keep that are uniquely yours. Should I pay to play that game?
Oh, and the same with skiing, because it's really fun when someone's wearing a GoPro, whether you're skiing or boarding, to experience that. I think that's really, I mean, I always love watching people's footage doing that.
Well, buy a New Zealand made one. See?
Sorry, what was it? We were saying we would exchange credit card numbers in the chat, Ryan. Where do we put that? Sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, it's not for me because this is not me. I don't make these, but these are designed here. Actually, they're made in obviously China at the moment, but there's a great manufacturing opportunity for New Zealand. You know, come on, but a number 8 wire, people. Let's make a little camera in a box.
I think this is where you've got the advantage at the moment, and I think it's the same for all countries, is if we all focus within our own at the moment, rebuild our tourism within that sector, then suddenly we're not only supporting our own, but then people outside of that are going to go, hang on, these guys love their own country because they're supporting it. We want in. It's a different perspective to look from.
Yeah, it is. And as you can tell from that accent, Alison is from Dunedin.
A sister country.
Yeah.
I'm across the waters, darling.
Yeah.
The West Island.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Dunedin and live in Auckland, and Kyle is originally from Auckland and now lives in Dunedin.
And I'm in Australia.
Yes,
we got that.
We got that.
Yeah, we got that.
It's a happy Anzac weekend.
The accent, but it didn't quite work out for people.
So that was part of what I wanted to say was for Anzac service. Gotta go. That's Harriet.
See you, Harriet. Lovely to meet you tonight.
Bye.
So I need to get that story out more.
So sorry to.
No, go for it, Dick.
So sorry to be so pessimistic, but I'm glad that Stuart is still on the call, because I was deeply troubled by your suggestion that domestic tourism, international tourism numbers would transfer to domestic tourism. My instinct of that $7 billion that Stephen spoke about from Tourism New Zealand transferring into domestic tourism, my instinct, I'll take a punt on it, happy to bet a bottle of champagne on it, but that 7 billion is going to transfer into about 500 million of domestic tourism, because the COVID consumer confidence shock is going to be so perverse in terms of people losing their jobs, having income shrinkage, commission shrinkage, investment dissipation, house values down, etc., and consumer confidence is not going to be able to support the premium, high-end consumer tourist industry we have. And I think instantly we've got a currency advantage. We're going to go into a bubble with Australia. That's one of our saving graces in the industry. And we need to vigorously compete airport by airport for Australian tourist dollars, point one. And point two is my point earlier about infrastructure bottlenecks. It's ridiculous that Air New Zealand gets subsidised and Virgin doesn't, because we need the price competition to get the cheap fares, to get the people across, to get them spending the value. For every 100 million bucks they spend on airfares, they're going to spend 500 million on tourist activities in New Zealand. And the second thing is the airport recapitalisation. The airport's been a value chain squeezer on the New Zealand tourist industry forever. The council should have taken it over and taken 51% and run the airport as the lowest cost airport in Australasia, because we have such headwinds on even getting to first base on rebuilding the tourist industry we had 3 months ago. And I enjoy a forum like this because I think the moment you get non-government paid speakers, you can be a little bit more realistic, because I think any party who works for the government is not able to be that alarmist. I was talking off the record, behind the scenes, of a senior government official 3 weeks ago, and he basically said to me, Tex, nobody thinks that tourism is ever coming back this decade. And his realignment of my perspective really scared me. That was in the first week of lockdown. And living in a tourist town where 60% of the GDP in my small village I live in Waiheke, people are really having trouble coming to terms with how it's just not happening. And my defining tourist event this week was the tourist operator who'd spent $8 million building a premium business in tears because she's got no business. And her exact words were, "Summit is not coming, Tex."
Just looking at it wrong.
It was 200 people, We're used to them.
It's pretty raw and awakening. Sounds like Alison, you from Australia live or breathe in this space as well. What was your comment going to be?
I actually do think this is a time where, because we've done a lot with New Zealand. New Zealand's done a lot with Australia over the decades, as you've all pointed out. And I think this is a time where we can all come together and we can stand alone against the rest of the world and become the forerunners and show them how it's done. And show them that as a united countries bringing it together, that we've all got, because you guys have gone through Christchurch, you've already had those experiences where it's actually slowed your growth down. You've all found ways through that and you've all survived that. And it's something we could all learn from. And I think moving forward, and each and every one of us have got our own experiences, like us with our bushfires and what we've gone through with that just recently, particularly. And I think if we all came together and collaborated with that information, we could come up with a better model.
Well, it's funny you say that. I've been since the first day of Kiwi, I've had a range of Australians who actually weren't on the call but have watched the video, approached me with the same concept and want to do a joint. We're in the throes of organising some sort of joint online event. And
I know about that one. That's the one I've been collaborating with Wendy with. So
yeah. Oh, all right. There you go.
That's me. That was me.
Right. Well, it's the sense in it, in terms of. Because I'm not from Christchurch, I didn't go through it, but I did get a phone call from my cousin who had to crawl out from between two collapsed floors and skinned all of his chest and back as he dragged himself through a little gap that was, smaller than he is, to get out of what he thought might eventually go platinum. So there are, some amazing stories and lessons that can be learnt, and it's Christchurch teaching New Zealand, not just Christchurch, the rest of New Zealand, and vice versa with the fires teaching. So yeah,
I think then you go to the other aspect. Then you look at the space industry, and they're just going leaps and bounds.
In what sense? Yeah,
in the innovation, because at the moment we're in an innovative time. So they're taking that, and a lot of them don't need to work side by side, so they can actually use this time to really innovate. And as I've nicknamed it in one of the other focus rooms, it's like the Beam Me Up Scotty era that's on its way.
I think the other thing is around science. So I don't know whether you've Mary Meeker she's an analyst. Has got
Yeah,
her own
Morgan
fund.
Stanley,
Yeah, from Bond. She's done a really good analysis on COVID-19, and one of the things that she pulls out is the how science has come together in record time for global collaboration on trying to beat this thing, and also with the kind of rise of the crazy right, who just believing science and things like that. There's this suddenly shift in that we're in a much more connected world, and so you can suddenly have 10,000 scientists all working on the same problem at the same time, which is why I think we'll get a vaccine out probably quicker than some people are expecting. But also those countries that have followed science are going to come out of this better than those that have gone on kind of instinctive, I don't know, I'm a business person, gut instinct, I've run a business before, so I know how to run a country. And
Talking about Trump here, are we?
Sorry, I was getting yeah, a little too unsubtle there. But I think the point is that there's this shift in the way that technology is enabling us to be able to, if we get the right people with a seat at the table, which is now starting to happen, then I think there's an opportunity to come out of this a better world.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think there's so many positive things that are coming out. I'd always said before I had children that they're going to go into a new world. They're going to go into jobs that don't exist or create. But this has just happened faster than even what I expected. And my kids have only got 5 years or so and they'll finish schooling. So they're going to walk into a world of expectation that this is their world. This is what they're going to demand and expect to have, just like the internet age, the mobile phone age and the iPad age. Those people have gone, hang on, but we have these tools. They've been hampered. Now they're loving it because they're like, yes, we can work from home. We can work at the park. We can do all these wonderful things. And I think the landscape of how our offices are going to look from here on in are going to change as well. And it's
We
just how we adapt to
can
that.
repurpose. So repurpose is my favourite word for all of this, because we've got all these they're going to become apartments, but all these buildings. So we've got to talk about your housing shortage. There's already a whole range of unrented, pre-COVID-19, a whole range of unrented buildings in Auckland. They have running water. Probably most of them have a shower and a toilet. You've got the basics, but I'm sure if we cut through the bureaucracy crap of it not being everything meeting living dwelling standards, you could just open up offices and allow people to live in there. At least it'd be warmer than in a in a gutter. And there's a car, like park that I go to, or used to go to, can't go to now because it's out of my, or can go to in lockdown 3 because it's in my region. But there become quite a growing number of people living in their car, and I obviously feel sympathy for that and was looking at it and made me think every time. But then I started to deal with the fact that people were taking dumps and using toilet paper and leaving that. So the car parks here and I park here, and you walk down the pathway to the park here, they're parking here and doing dumps over here on the pathway. So when I have to step over piles of human shit and toilet paper, I went, no, that's not really on. The sympathy's starting to dissipate a little bit here. And yeah, so did the community. But if all those people that are in cars or homeless or whatever were able to just be immediately put into those places. So like, the government was spending $500 a night on a hotel room to put homeless or out-of-home people in. And then for a shitty little shitter of a hotel room, that's normally $70. That's complete rip-off of our tax-paying dollars. So why doesn't the government buy these buildings? And if they need to convert a few bits and pieces, but basically just buy the building tomorrow and put the people that need it in there rather than living in cars or homeless. I mean, it seems like I know there's probably a few bits to be done in between, but it seems like a quick fix, much quicker than what we've got at the moment anyway.
It's a good temporary fix until you find a better solution. But there's also so many different options out there. But you're right. Why are they not looking at a quicker solution to the problem rather than keep elongating it? Because they'd want to bury their heads in the sand, but they're happy to have more and more of these people to fulfill these other roles. But then they're pushing the local people out, and they're the ones that are being stuck.
Yeah, so I'd like to open it to the floor a bit more, get a few more comments, different thoughts in here, because this is going to be our wrap up. Is what whether you label it as bureaucracy or anything, but basically I call it the old thinking and the old rules. To me, they've all gone out the door. So if we had a clean slate and we could just do things, what are the things we could just do with what we've got, using the empty buildings becoming housing as the answer to the housing shortage, as an example? But what else is there that needs to be done? Mr. Leslie, sitting in the Matrix, you got any ideas? You're on mute. Hang on, I took everyone off mute.
You got to pin your thing, mate. He's got to click his clicker. He's got to.
No, I was desperately. I've been sitting there trying to unmute myself, and it's like you can't unmute yourself. So I've messaged you.
I thought I'd already unmuted everybody. Sorry.
I don't know what happened. It doesn't matter.
That's all right. So, what are your thoughts? What do you want to jump in there with?
So I quite like your idea about reusing some of the commercial premise that are around for actually housing people, and I'm not so sure it would be so hard to. You've got to think, if there was a desire to do it, that you could bring them to a standard that would be acceptable quite easily, not necessarily the residential standard as we know it, but ultimately all office buildings still have sanitation, they still have running water, they have all the basic facilities. It wouldn't be that hard.
But my view is there isn't a housing shortage. As of about 2 weeks ago, there's 100,000 international students in Auckland. 7% of Auckland's GDP comes from international students. They've all gone home. There's buckets and buckets of empty apartments in Auckland. Rents are coming down. Values are coming down. And the government's going to announce either building another 10,000 houses or 20,000 houses, because house building is such a catalyst in employment. We're going to see an upgrade in housing. I really like the speaker who talked about the impact of unhealthy homes, because I think those problems are going to get resolved quite quickly.
Absolutely.
But I think that the market dynamic is going to scare the shit out of people. My defining real estate event in my career has been seeing house prices halve in London in the early 90s. And, you know, I remember being in a bankers meeting about 4 weeks ago saying, I think house prices might halve in Auckland. And the guy basically wanted me to leave a meeting. He goes, it's so disruptive. He said, every bank in town will be broke. And that languaging how that can happen is important in creating a creative mind to work out what the solution is here. But when you finish discussing the evaporation of tourists, premium tourists, and that $3.5 billion a month of tourism, start talking about the international education market, because that's huge also. And I think it's understated, the numbers also.
So how much, yeah. So look, I'm going to call it to an end here. It's now 8 o'clock. We're 1 hour over. I could stay here forever, but I've got to head off and have some dinner, and you probably do too. But this is the great sort of discussion that I hope was happening in the breakout rooms, and it's a sort of great discussion that would be, yeah. So the question is, have a think about it. Drop me a line. But how do we have this type of discussion on the scale of hundreds? Is it an event where the breakout rooms last for 15 minutes and have 6-7 people in it rather than 5 minutes? I don't know.
I think keep them small, because then it makes people have to keep that thinking happening. So then that doesn't dry up if there's no conversation in a particular group.
Okay.
And I think also being conscious that people contribute in different ways.
That's right.
So this is one type of contribution, but
yeah,
I think part of the onus on change is to, if we can explore what we best bring to the country, each of us, then will all of us be more successful.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Kate.
I'd really like to see the thread between the gatherings keep maintained some way where, I don't know, and maybe it's through Sandra's amazing work or whatever of, you know, themes and ideas that we can keep adding to, and then maybe we revisit them as part of the gatherings.
Create a backlog.
Iteration loop.
Yeah, create a backlog. Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's it.
You,
Right,
you do
well,
a great job of stimulating the conversation, Ryan.
Yeah, well done, Ryan.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thanks all for coming and being part of it. So thank you all, much appreciated. I'll hit the end meeting button in a second. So ka kite anō.
Hey, before you go, we could have a clap for you, mate.
Yeah.
Yes, well done. Woo.
Thank you very much. All right.
And well done to everybody. Nice to see you all again.
See you soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good night, everyone. And that's good night from me. And good night from you.
And good night from him, yeah.
See you in the Matrix, Mark.